Cool, I think we are live. So everyone who's watching, thank you for being here with us today. The MXL team is actually very pleased to welcome back especially our old-time supporters, our portfolio startups, mentors, investors, obviously also all our business partners. Those of you that have been following our path constantly over the past 5 years and made this program to what it is now. It's the go-to platform for hospitality and retail tech, right? So today marks our 8th demo day and also our very first Digital Xcellence Forum, which actually means compared to a normal demo day, this one is targeted to uncover funding and new business development opportunities for all the startups that already successfully piloted their solutions with Metro or actually with Metro partners. So in addition, we are also offering valuable content from our speakers around scaling, internationalization, and also trending investment topics over the next 2 days. So this day is targeted towards business development. Tomorrow is more targeted towards funding and investments. So the startup pitches for the BizDev opportunities will start at 2:45. We'll have 8 companies pitching. Again, our portfolio companies who are ready to scale into various countries, but also startups that have been successfully match-made, offering solutions that fulfill an eminent need for actually the new normal now. The pitches are also followed by a fireside chat with 2 startups, Lisa, Cecil, that successfully expanded from the US to Europe and vice versa, even during COVID. So there is a lot to learn for all our companies that joined today. The MXL events are also known for the great after-show network parties, right? So there's great food involved, nice drinks, which unfortunately we can't offer now. But even in these times, we found a solution to replicate at least the most important part, which is the networking. So at 4:45, we invite the startups. So they will have the opportunity to meet and speak with our experts, to get advice around how to pilot with Metro from other startups as well as from our Metro colleagues, but also how to enable fast scaling from a product point of view, and obviously general strategic advice from the mentors that you might know over the past 5 years. But now actually it's about time to start with our first session, and I'd like to hand over to our CEO, Olaf Koch, who's the program sponsor and actually also the best program support one could wish for. And also Olaf offered to do a Q&A after his presentation. So you're also welcome to drop in your questions that Olaf will then answer. So Olaf, thanks a lot for your support, and the stage is yours.
Well, thank you, Sylvia, and welcome everyone. It's great to reconnect, and while we cannot meet each other, still, stay connected and exchange ideas, observations, and reflections, and times which are without any precedence, but are also times that do not only expose us to challenges, but also open new opportunities. So today I was asked to talk about how do you create a culture for innovation within a company, and I think a good beginning for that theme is to actually introduce to you who Metro really is. Hopefully a lot of you have followed the journey Metro has gone through, but some of you might not really know, because Metro used to be a conglomerate with department stores, consumer electronics, hypermarkets, and our original business, which is wholesale. Today we are 100% wholesale. We are 100% committed to wholesale in food and non-food, but we are very much committed to our customer base, and that customer base is a precious one. It's the millions of independent entrepreneurs that run either a business in hospitality or an independent grocery. Those are the 2 main target groups that we are serving. And yes, we want to give them access to great product, great quality of product, very tailor-made ranges, but we want to be there to actually make a difference to the way they work. We want to be their partner of choice. We want to be the champion for independent business. And that means that we want to make a contribution to their success. That is the purpose of Metro. In today's world, in the year 2020, we are proud about the purpose Metro has in its business model, which is to support people like the one you see on those charts that will follow. And that only works in a company that is absolutely committed to humility and always reflecting that there's always something in addition that we can learn. And we'll never stop in trying to understand more about what our customers need, what they will need tomorrow, what kind of challenges will they be exposed to. And that is only possible if you work with data, and we'll come back to that theme of working with data is, of course, a very powerful approach, but you also need the human part of it. These people will not share their concerns and their thoughts with you if they don't trust in you. And that's why these personal relationships and that trust base that we establish throughout 25 countries is kind of the precondition for every success. How do you earn trust? Well, you only earn trust if you go the extra mile. You know that from your private life, you know that from your business life. In times of need, that's when you need to go one step further and actually give something to them. And don't expect something in return right away, but build something that is more lasting than just that individual transaction that you are about to close in the case of selling them products. We want not just to sell products, we want to build business relationships. When we do that, we learned already years ago that then we are entitled to give them advice, to give them access to innovation, sometimes to inspire them, sometimes to make them aware that there are new solutions. And 5 years ago, we started to roll out academies in many of our countries. One of the most famous academies actually is in Turkey called Gastronometro. Meanwhile, it has become an iconic place for people in the hospitality sector to meet, to learn, to exchange ideas, to get inspiration. And this is exactly what we are poised to do. And there's a very simple formula for our success. When our customers win, that's when we win. That's why we say your success is our business. And this is very true for millions of customers. We are blessed with the fact that we have more than 15 million customers. One of them is Lillian. Lillian runs a pastry business in Milano, and she's one of those great customers that we're really proud to serve because, yes, she is one of those many million entrepreneurs that make this life so enjoyable because she serves great pastry, great coffee. She inspires people with the energy and the hospitality that she brings to the table. And this is exactly what we want to do as a company. We want to be there for them. And this is more than just a strategic rationale from an economic point of view. It's a long-lasting purpose that makes a contribution, of course, to the business, but actually even broader, it makes a contribution to society. Now, if you look into the split of sales that Metro represents today, roughly 50% of our sales today are in what we call HORECA, hotels, restaurants, and catering companies. And that is predominantly Western Europe and Southern Europe. Independent grocers, or we call them traders, represent roughly 22%. And here the largest footprint we have in Central Eastern Europe and in Asia. And then, of course, we welcome also other customers, people that have a startup, people that are in tech, people that are in advisory. We also welcome them, but we consciously and honestly tell them the main focus we have is on the two first named target groups, because we are very much convinced, I'm personally very much convinced, you need to focus to be meaningful, and that's why we focus on those two groups. This is only possible when you understand that wholesale, at least, is a people business. And there is no way that you can just run it from a blueprint and a template and run it from the center and tell people what to do. You either empower people and engage people, or you fail. And we've seen that in the past where we were failing and where we were losing market share. And our strongest competitors most often were local heroes with a lot of passion in a given country, in a given region, or in a given city. And they would outperform Metro because we were way too limited in the authority we would give to people. Now, in the last couple of years, we have been empowering our people in the countries, in the regions, in the cities, in the stores. And we shared with them our conviction that we only can make this company bigger and more successful if we believe in interdependency. And in interdependency, every single one, is it an associate on the shop floor? Is it a salesperson in the sales force? Is it a manager on a local account or an executive in the center? It doesn't matter. We only can succeed if we collaborate. And what you can see on the left side on the chart is the engagement score. Since 2011, we are measuring how much are the people engaged with the company. How much do they believe in the purpose, and how much they can identify themselves with the strategy and the approach that we have chosen. And as you can see, in 2011, we were at a low point at 60. Today we're at 76, and that makes us one of the leading companies. Actually, from the numbers I've seen, it makes us the leader in regard of engagement of workforce. This goes hand in hand with customer satisfaction. You cannot inspire customers and make them happy if your workforce is not happy. And we see not a linear correlation, we see an exponential correlation. We are collecting net promoter scores now in 25 countries, and we have a consecutive improvement of NPS scores throughout the last 2.5 years. And finally, all of this needs to turn into economics, and those are our value creation plans that we have installed 5 years ago in 2015. And as you see, over 6 years, we generated consecutive like-for-like growth. Prior to the COVID-19 outbreak, actually, we had the highest like-for-like in 10 years, above 3%. Ever since we have seen COVID-19 breaking out, we still continue to gain market shares because markets are down double-digit, and apparently we are doing way better with the fourth quarter from July to September, where we almost broke even with previous year levels in sales. Now, moving from people to people. This is an illustration of togetherness. This is an iconic initiative which we launched in April, connecting the thousands of people, the 100,000 of people that work at Metro, in reaching out their hands to each other, no matter where they have been, in what country, in what city, in what place. And it has become a manifestation of togetherness. And that's why I'm personally so convinced that Metro is super well positioned for the future, no matter what kind of additional challenges COVID-19 might impose on the company. And again, moving from people to people, those are the brilliant people that we are blessed to serve. Those are people that give you, us, myself, access to this fantastic choice and the pleasure to visit this authentic taste of Spanish, Italian, Mexican, German, French, Indian, whatever kind of cuisine. But it's not only the food, it is the atmosphere, it's the soul. It's this thing that makes our life so valuable and so rich. And that's why we continue to say, yeah, we are honest, we are blessed, and we are humble to serve them and to contribute to their success. Now, it's very true that for those customers, it has been difficult prior to COVID, and actually with COVID, it has become even more difficult. And that has to do with competition. There are modern chains trying to grab market share from those individuals. But luckily enough, in continental Europe, more than 80% of hospitality business is still run by independent people. You see cost increases everywhere, leases going up, labor is becoming more expensive. Actually, it's very difficult to get good people to work with you and your business. The law has become much more strict, not only on the financial side, but also on all the regulations that you need to comply with. And you have consumers that are changing in an accelerating fashion. Specifically, if you look at millennials or Generation Z, these people, you are part of that, will not find a restaurant if they are not online. You will not consider them if they don't get good ratings. You will only potentially be inspired if they actually have a great presence on Instagram and they continue to post what they are doing. Those changes are relevant to these customers, and they are sometimes overwhelmed with all of this that they cannot understand, but they need to deal with. The working environment in those businesses is hard. It's often 6 days a week, sometimes 7 days a week, and then it doesn't look like you get the best financial return if you are not one of those lucky guys that has this fantastic hotspot where everything goes by itself. That means that we as Metro, we have become aware of this in the implementation of our strategy by asking ourselves, what else do we need to do on top of the product and the distribution channels, the stores and the delivery? What else do we need to consider to really become that unique partner for you as a restaurateur or for you as a grocer that not only wants to survive, but wants to succeed? And in that context, we analyzed what is the total spend of a restaurant. And shame on us, until 3 years ago, we didn't know. But it's very visible here. Only 1/3 of the spend of a restaurant is on goods, predominantly food and some non-food. Roughly another third is on people, it's staff. And then you see utilities, leases, and all the rest of it. And quite frankly, we didn't really consider whether we should play a role in those buckets, because as a wholesale company, your origin is buying goods and selling goods. But in the year 2020 and the years to come, that simply isn't good enough. And that's why we started a strategy a few years ago where we looked into every single bucket and trying to understand, how can we help you to reduce your cost? How can we improve efficiency back of the house, front of the house? How can we help you to be more productive and therefore have less dependency on labor costs, which is so difficult? How can we help you on admin? How can we help you almost anything that is possible to make your business more successful? Now, does that mean that Metro is on its way to become the next conglomerate, but now with all kinds of other services left and right? No. We came to the conclusion that we cannot do this alone. So this question here is rhetorical. We cannot do this alone. And that's why already years ago, and some of you might remember this because I showed those charts actually in 2016 at the demo day, we started to look into the space of new ideas. We reached out to people with a very simple question initially, and that was, in 2016, how did digital really look like for a restaurant, for a HORECA business? And the truth was, it looked like this. There was barely valuable stuff out there. Yes, there was stuff out there making lots of promises and quite often not keeping them, but actually adding some more cost on commission fees that those guys needed to pay. We were not interested in that stuff. We asked the question, are there ideas to help an entrepreneur in HORECA? And luckily enough, we identified quite a few already with the first accelerator, but we wanted to understand, is there more? Is this something that has potential? And yes, luckily enough, also there, already with the first accelerator, we got hundreds of applications, and we were quite amazed about the ideas that were brought to the table. But of course, always the question that you need to answer is that idea feasible? Does it really create value for customers? And if I remember well from the first accelerator, already at that time, many of those could prove immediate value. And some of them, until now, have continued on an unstoppable rise. And Floatify is one I would like to mention, because Floatify is an alumni from the very first accelerator program, a helping tool to do all your HACCP documentation and all the hygiene documentation, which is so important in times of COVID-19, but all of that not done with paper, but done digitally. For me, it looked like, I don't know whether this can fly. And guess what? It flies, and it will fly further now that the whole industry is in need for such a solution. But then the question was, okay, now we have a couple of dozen ideas, and some of them already proving to be valuable for customers. Is it feasible to think about this as something that could become an ecosystem? And is that something where we as Metro can make a contribution by partnering up with selected companies? And the answer is very simple. It's a yes, because we bring stuff to the table that young companies cannot bring to the table, which is we have the sector expertise, we have the customer access, we have a brand that is trusted, and therefore for us to open a door is a million times simpler than for a new incumbent trying to convince a restaurateur just to listen in for a couple of minutes, because typically they would not listen in. So the answer has been a strong yes. And ever since, you know that the accelerator program has been growing and growing and growing and reinventing itself, specifically also in times of COVID-19 moving into digital. And I'm so pleased and honestly proud about what the team has achieved. And if you look into the various value adds that the MXL program can bring to the table, from discovery of those points that Metro wants to address, that they can bring back to the audience and reach out to you guys, considering whether applications that you have in mind might make sense. Then to find out pilot applications, to do the validation and the proof of concept, and eventually find a commercial deal to scale up or even to invest if that is of benefit for both parties, if that has a mutual benefit. So to remind you, we did believe in this to be a sizable opportunity. And as we did believe in that, we moved on in expanding the business. We call that Wholesale 360. And you will find more of this when you do your research online about what Metro is all about these days. So we provide advisory. We have consultants in the field that will help you to open your restaurant, to rethink your restaurant, to innovate your restaurant. We have digital tools that will boost your productivity, and I'll come back to that in a deep dive in a couple of minutes. We launched Metro Markets in September 2019. We are now offering 500,000 of SKUs. Just to compare that with a store, and this is predominantly non-food, can only offer 20,000 SKUs. Metro Markets will be the biggest platform for HORECA non-food products sold online. And Philip Lohme, the CEO of Metro Markets, has launched this in record time and scaled it up in record time. You see Metro Financial Services, which is a new product that we bring to the market in Germany, where we will help you to bridge financing need together with partners in the financial services industry. We rolled out a partnership on equipment. Why would you do that? Well, I mentioned that labor is such a scarce resource these days. If you need to think to improve productivity, you will need to invest into equipment. And Pentagast is our partner of choice that we have teamed up with in Germany, and more partnerships are to come across Europe. And then finally, product. Yeah, well, product is what we've done since 1964. But this product that you see on the top, convenience, is tailor-made product that you can implement and serve with equipment that I just referred to with Pentagast, that will boost your productivity by 30, 40% in the kitchen. So all of this is kind of a full circle approach that we have initiated, and that has created lots of creativity throughout the whole group, and is, from my point of view, the core DNA of Metro's way into the future. Now look into Hospitality Digital. Hospitality Digital is permanently seeking new ways on how to support a restaurant owner, a cafe owner, a bistro owner, on how to improve the business. What we want to do is we want to empower those independent guys with the same means and tools that the chained food service industry is using already since more than 10 years. We provide those tools, and as such, we also enable an even stronger relationship between Metro and those customers. And you see the many questions that Hospitality Digital is addressing. And we do that, of course, backed on data. We rolled out some basic tools and third-party tools already 3 years ago. And we measured the benefit, the financial benefit, as much as the productivity benefit. And the first things we did were very simple, but sometimes for them mind-boggling and actually very demanding, like rolling out a free website and just become visible online and in social media. Rolling out a reservation tool, which is not charging you a fee for the basic reservation function. And there are many more tools that we rolled out in the meantime. On the right side, you see the many factual improvements that we can bring to the table. And this is the reason why Hospitality Digital over the course of the last 2.5 years has become the leading digital platform for the hospitality industry. Today, actually this number already is outdated, we have more than 200,000 accounts, digital accounts that are enrolled with Hospitality Digital. We are offering our tools in 16 countries, and we have 18 different tools already. We have a very high Net Promoter Score, and as you can see, also the utilization of our tools is growing while we speak. Now, this is based on a very strong platform that Metro brings to the table. We have established relationship with small and medium-sized enterprises for decades. We do this in 25 countries. As I mentioned before, we have 60 million registered customers. And we're serving through 2 channels, 650 stores and food service distribution. Plus, let's not forget, we have more than 7,000 Salesforce people out there in the field every day. And we turned that into a platform on the digital side. It's called Dish, and you can do your own homework and look at Dish. Dish, meanwhile, is the platform through which we offer our tools, but not only our tools, but also best practices and online learning. And it's becoming the community for the digital space for restaurateurs, but also for innovators. So while we are talking about this, I just actually came back from a board meeting with Hospitality Digital. These guys are always thinking ahead. They have the next top 5 things in the pipeline that are about to be rolled out in the first half of 2021. And that's why I'm so convinced that Metro, even after my tenure, which will end by the end of this month, after 9 years as CEO, I'm totally convinced that the DNA of Metro on innovation is very, very strong and very resilient. And it starts, of course, with the brand Metro itself. And as I mentioned before, with an accelerator program, MXL, that is now very experienced, has a lot of learnings that we have taken since 2015, and is applying them in a modernized fashion every single time when we launch a new program. And that, I think, has been proven in 2020 during the time of COVID-19 restrictions. We are also launching Metro Digital. This is our new internal IT platform. Essentially, this is the next evolution step of Metronome, our subsidiary that provides digital tools for Metro inside. We also have Hospitality Digital, which I referenced already, and we have Metro Markets. You should stay tuned on Metro Markets because this is going to continue to grow very fast in Germany, and we have the next country launch just around the corner. SME Services is that subsidiary that is investing into financial services, energy services, and all kinds of other value-added things that can be added. And then NX Food, which is the logical expansion of innovation into the food space. So Fabio, he's the CEO of NX Food. He's permanently looking out for new products, new food tech, like processing food in a different way or generating alternative proteins by new formulations and new ingredients, one of the fastest rising sectors right now on a global scale. And you should not be surprised if you see the launch of a next thing somewhere in the first half of 2021. That's why, going back to my opening remarks, we are a company with a very strong business. We are very much founded on the people side of business. That means the people that we are blessed to serve and the people that are excited to join into a community that is absolutely committed to provide a contribution to make other people more successful, which is good for the success of those business people, but it's also good for societies because they are enriched through the diversity of the many entrepreneurs that are out there. And this is kind of the core DNA for innovation, I'm convinced of, because only when we invite people to think out of the box, to really have disruptive ideas on how to serve customers in a different and a more meaningful way, that's when we lay the foundation for even more innovation. And with that, let me conclude, and we have a bit of time left as well to address a few questions if you like.
I'm on mute. Hi, Olaf.
Hello.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
And you can see me?
No, I cannot see you, but I can hear you.
Oh, okay. So this is Serena. Thank you so much for sharing that. I'm actually so excited. I have this question, which I wanted to ask you, like, it's probably the same question, but in 3 different aspects of your life. But this last slide is just so exciting about all the different things about Metro and the bigger group, and what lies ahead. And I think the first question, before I jump to the group and what everyone else has to ask you, I would want to say, what are you most excited for Metro's future?
Well, I'm most excited about the fact that we have a very strong conviction within our teams, within the people, that what we do makes a difference. And you could see that actually in this very dark period of time, end of March and April, in the first outbreak of COVID. And some organizations probably had the tendency then to paralyze and to be under a big shock. And I think here at Metro, we were exposed to the same, but it only took a very short moment in time. And people started to say, yeah, but it's now that we now need to help those guys because they are desperate. They needed to close their cafe, their restaurant. What are we doing to help them? What can we do to encourage them now to offer takeaway, to engage into meal delivery? How can we help them to apply for governmental aids? And you could see such a energetic movement throughout the whole organization. And for me, there was the strongest conviction, and is the strongest conviction, that while we move ahead, Metro is poised for success because the people at Metro make the difference, and they are very, very strong.
Very exciting. We have a question from the audience saying, after COVID, we will see restaurants open in like random locations. Have Metro done any research around that already? Around, have they picked up on certain locations, something that might look trendy, or like, things that you can look forward to, or not something that you could track yet?
I hope I get the question right. On the restart of the hospitality sector after the lockdown and how people find their locations, and actually probably also included in the question, how many of them actually will reopen, or will many of them already have been closed down? So let me start with this phenomena in this industry, that every given year we see a lot of doors closing down. But the threshold to move into the hospitality sector is very low. That's why also the number of startups in that industry is super high. And what we are seeing right now is that a lot of people are getting ready to restart the business in the spring and summertime. And when it comes to locations, location is, of course, very key for the success of a hospitality business. We are keeping our eyes open, it's true, in every given city, to make sure that if there is a door closing down, that we encourage other people to open business. And we are launching startup services for restaurants that will help you on the top most important things that you need to consider opening a restaurant, and the 10 do nots in opening a restaurant. So the 10 reasons for failure that we share with people. So we are preparing for the relaunch of hospitality. We did it in a slightly different fashion already in May, when we had the first restart. There we did a lot of campaigning for our restaurants, also to give consumers the trust that it's a safe place to go and that they should not be worried when they visit a restaurant. And we'll do something very similar in spring, summer. At least that's already what we're planning. And then I will, of course, observe it from the outside.
Yes, I remember that specifically very well. We also spoke about this during our session in May. Just like how much you communicate. I really love that and appreciate that. Actually, someone is now, one of the questions here links into this a little bit because it's culture. They ask, how did you and how do you continue to bring cultural innovation across Metro?
Yeah, that is, I think, one of the most important questions. And I don't think that there's that one single answer to that. I think that to keep this culture vibrant and energetic, from my point of view, there are at least two things that we attempt to do right. And certainly in many cases it worked out, but probably not in all cases. And one is to keep a very strong and close proximity between all levels of the company. So people on the shop floor are valuable, and they are super valuable. Executives in the center are valuable, and they are also very valuable. But to bring those all together on a regular basis and to keep that dialogue in a very open fashion on the good things we're doing as much on the not so good things we're doing. And in a certain way, the Net Promoter Score exercise, which sounds like something that we have done because of a strategy consultant imposing that on us, it's not true. We have taken this very seriously, because Net Promoter Score kind of is a mirror that you need to look into that doesn't lie. And the criticism that you're exposed to by customers complaining about either quality of service, availability of product, and the like, puts a lot of pressure on the organization to live up to our promise, which is we want to do the best possible for our clients. And to learn that those conflicts that are created through such a system are not a negative, are not a threat, but actually are the potential to improve further, was a very difficult learning for us. And we continue to say as a management team, we need to create these conflicts, not because we like conflict and we are people that want to have infights, the opposite, the other way around. We want to have conflict to turn better. And an organization that is essentially completely depending on the people side, whether it succeeds or fails, needs to find a positive way on how to resolve conflict. And that's something that we try to enhance all the time. We have guiding principles that our new CHRO, Andrea, has actually reshaped just recently. And now you could say, well, this is another set of flyers, but it's more. The guiding principles are part of the appraisal. Those are the core beliefs on how behavior at Metro should look like. And in the half year and the full year review, 50% of the time is allocated on how have you been doing on the targets that we agreed, and 50% is spent on the question, how did you behave? How did you grow as a person? How did you invest into relationships? How are you seen by your peers, your colleagues? That is quite an investment, honestly, as well for the people inside of Metro to deal with that. But we are having a no tolerance policy on this, because we are also measuring every single quarter the engagement score, not only for the whole firm, but by department. And if your engagement score is weak, that can happen because of something happening in the circumstances around you, but it should not happen twice. And we will ask, what have you done the last time that you got the result? Did you speak up? Did you have a meeting with your people? Did you reflect on that? So I know my answer has been very long, but actually it is a very demanding challenge for every company, I think, to keep this cultural engagement high. And therefore, it's one of the most important leadership tasks of our times, I think.
Thank you. I appreciate that answer actually a lot. And it's wonderful to see that growth in that interaction score. So that's a lot to do, I'm sure, with you and the time you've been involved. Another innovation question, actually. What is the benefit of having an external and internal innovation aspect to the business? And how are you at Metro able to balance this?
Yeah, that I think is also a very, very valuable question. And companies, and I think it's almost independent of the industry, have a tendency inside of the company to believe we can identify the opportunities ourselves. We don't need the outside. We are smarter than that. We are more experienced, and people who don't know our industry might come up with not those meaningful solutions. But actually, my learning is that's not true. By definition, within a company, you have limitations. You have also a way on how to approach things that needs to control risk. And that's why some things you might not even consider because your intuitive assessment might be it's too risky. Whereas if you engage with a larger community, and that community also being exposed to different innovation influences, they might bring up thoughts that probably would never have come up within the organization. And I can say, since the start of the accelerator, this has been a catalyst for innovation. It has been a catalyst not only for teaming up with startups in selected cases, but also in actually reconsidering how are we running our business. I would dare to say this wholesale 360 approach would not have emerged without the outside-in reflection that the way to think about the hospitality business is way broader, that the world out there is way bigger, and that the role we can play is way more significant. That's why I'm a true believer. It always needs to be the right balance. You need to appreciate the insight and give them respect and acknowledgement, because if you create fear and anger within your internal organization, that also kills the outside innovation. So it is, it needs to be a fine balance.
Great stuff, thank you. If you allow me one last question, and I'm going to be a little selfish, since this is probably the last time that I will be able to ask you this. If you were about to set up a startup program now, what are the prerequisites in addition to the program that you would want to put into place?
In a certain way, I think the team has answered the question. You have answered the question, Silvia, Julia. I mean, the way how you redefined the program, and starting with the diagnosis, where are the pain points of the organization, and what are the priorities that we need to set to have an effective radar screen to identify the right things that make sense for us as a firm. We didn't have that in 2015. At that time, I think for good reason, we wanted to make it as broad as possible. And we learned a hell of a lot through that approach. And I would probably encourage everyone to open a new accelerator. In the beginning, make it as broad as possible. For us as Metro, I think meanwhile it has become much more precise, and that gives credit to you guys running that program for taking every single one as a learning and trying to enhance the program with every launch of a new one. So well done.
Thank you. Also, thank you for your involvement. I think Sylvia mentioned this before, but I'm just going to take opportunity for your involvement since I've joined the company about 2-3 years ago. You have been on every program. As I said before, you comment on all our social media posts. You brag about the startups, just mentioning our Photify. Thank you so much for the leader that you have been and is for us. And thank you for your time on sharing about the future of Metro and how you've been going through this very special year. We probably won't see each other in person before December when your last day is, but we will definitely see each other in the future. Thank you very much for your time.
Well, thank you guys, and enjoy the program and much success. Take care.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
And so I think I'm still live, right? Julia? Oh, I have no idea. If I am live, I'm just going to say this, that we will be switching over to the next session, actually. Let me just make 100% sure if I'm still online. Yes, I'm still live, says Julia. Thanks, Julia. So let me get back to the screen. So we will now be jumping into the panel discussion, which is also very exciting. I want to make sure that everyone, no, we'll be jumping into the demo day pitches, excuse me. Very exciting that we have some of our alumni companies and some new companies who can add value to the retail and hospitality space, new solutions, new ideas, new innovation. So very, very excited to have this session now. Just want to hear if we are ready. I think we're ready to go, right? Yes. And so the first company that we have is CB4, and Zach will be the presenter here. CB4 is a sophisticated but simple AI for next level retail execution. Zach, if you're there.
Thank you so much for the introduction, Serena. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Fantastic. And do you see my screen?
No, not yet. But maybe some other people do. Yes, we see it.
Perfect. Thank you so much. So, following the introduction, my name is Zach Ziegelbaum, and I'm the EMEA Director at CB4, leading our European expansion efforts. CB4's platform is a patented AI SaaS solution serving brick-and-mortar retailers across the US and Europe. We're an $80 million business, proudly backed by Sequoia Capital and Octopus Ventures, raising a total of $30 million to date, and obviously a very proud Metro Target Retail Accelerator alumni. We have more than 30 retail customers, spanning a wide array of verticals from fashion, such as Urban Outfitters and Levi's, to consumer electronics with MediaMarkt, and grocery, including Tesco's, Lidl, Eroski, and number more. We apply our patented AI to just very simple point-of-sale data to help retailers uncover and correct operational issues, holding back sales of products that consumers love the most from each store. By correcting these chronic systemic issues, we improve floor execution and enable enhanced customer experience, resulting in up to 2% net new sales growth for our partners. And so how does CB4 help answer the challenges that we face of today? There are 3 points that I wanted to share. Today's shoppers want easy. And how do we know this? In an August McKinsey survey, 82% of consumers said that availability or convenience was one of the main reasons for trying a new brand. NRF also did a survey whereby 97% of consumers said they backed out of a purchase because it was inconvenient for them. And we ran our own CB4 COVID shopper survey across thousands of consumers, of which 71% of respondents said that getting everything on their list in one trip was either extremely important or very important to them. So delivering an easy one-trip experience to win new customers. The retailers we work with share that they're seeing a significant number of first-time shoppers during COVID. These retailers are increasing market share by using CB4 to deliver the easy one-trip experience that today's shoppers demand, ultimately turning first-time shoppers into repeat customers. And then third, what does CB4 do? CB4 sends each store manager across the chain a custom list of, say, 10 to 15 SKUs that have incredibly high demand at the specific store, but a problem is preventing customers from buying them. Store managers can execute a simple, quick in-store fix and turn a potentially negative experience into a very positive and profitable one. Now, by focusing only on correcting issues for products with high demand, a significant increase in sales can be gained without investing huge amounts of time at the store level. In fact, one of our global apparel partners, CFOs, was recently featured in the Wall Street Journal and referenced that AI has improved gross margins in Q3, up 1.3% from Q3 last year, which I think is truly remarkable considering they're not even a grocer, given the current retail climate. If I have a few more minutes, Serena, I can actually play a video that helps to articulate how our AI solution actually works. Otherwise, thank you so much for the time, and I'd welcome the opportunity to discuss the application of CB4 with anybody that may be interested.
Zach, I think you've got more time, so feel welcome to still share that video.
All right, I'll do that
I
now.
know that's very nice. It brings everything together.
Fantastic. Let me share my screen again. Do you still see my screen, Serena?
Yes. Yes.
Use CB4's patented AI solution to find and fix costly problems in their stores that are invisible to existing technology. What's the secret? Hidden patterns in basic POS data. Here's a simplified example. Each row here is an individual store in a chain. Each column is a product that's sold in those stores. The dots represent high, medium, and low volume sales. With trillions of combinations, finding a pattern is difficult for traditional analytics tools. It's even harder for the human eye. Here's how 10 products sell at just 10 stores. Do you see a pattern anywhere? Finding one is tough, even when you look at just a fraction of the data. But once you use artificial intelligence to rearrange this data, a distinct pattern emerges. There are 6 stores that share a behavior pattern. They sell these 4 products nearly identically. The outlier is a fat-free whipped cream, which appears to have comparable sales in all stores except Raleigh. In fact, Raleigh should have high sales of that whipped cream.
Yeah.
So I don't think that it's working, actually. I just get a message that it's not showing. So I don't know what happened. There I can see your screen, but I know when you play it, it didn't work. Maybe try again. Yeah.
Retailers use CB4's patented AI solution to find and fix costly problems in their stores that are invisible to existing technology. What's the secret? Hidden patterns in basic POS data. Here's a simplified example. Each row here is an individual store in a chain. Each column is a product that's sold in those stores. The dots represent high, medium, and low volume sales. With trillions of combinations, finding a pattern is difficult for traditional analytics tools. It's even harder for the human eye. Here's how 10 products sell at just 10 stores. Do you see a pattern anywhere? Finding one is tough, even when you look at just a fraction of the data. But once you use artificial intelligence to rearrange this data, a distinct pattern emerges. There are 6 stores that share a behavior pattern. They sell these 4 products nearly identically. The outlier is a fat-free whipped cream, which appears to have comparable sales in all stores except Raleigh. In fact, Raleigh should have high sales of that whipped cream. But a unique condition in the store is preventing it from selling the way it should. The system shows there are a lot of units on hand. There are no holes on the shelf. However, the fat-free whipped cream is out of stock. The shelf looks full because the night crew filled in the empty spot with double amount of extra creamy whipped cream. CB4 alerts the store manager, who leaps into action. With the fat-free whipped cream on the floor, sales at the Raleigh store now rise to where they should be. If we zoom out to the whole chain, you'll uncover a wealth of opportunities for your store managers to capture lost sales. In under 20 minutes a week, store managers improve the in-store experience for shoppers and increase sales by up to 2%. That's why these retailers love CB4. Need to see it to believe it? Plug your POS data into our engine and see the results for yourself. What we find might surprise you. Get in touch with us now to learn more.
Thank you very much, Zach.
Pleasure, thank you.
So I'm sure that Zach will also be at the networking later. So those of you who wants to connect with him, CB4 also ran a successful pilot within Metro earlier this year. So good to be chatting with him if you're interested in that. The next company, Untitled, actually also just recently completed a successful pilot with Metro. So I'm very happy and excited to introduce you to Cedric, the CEO of Untitled. And Untitled, hi Cedric, I can see your video. Let me just quickly tell the people, Untitled strengthens customer engagement with brands and retailers through one-to-one propositions and gamifications. Over to you, Cedric. You're just on mute. Just make sure you're on mute.
I don't think I'm on mute.
You're good.
Can you hear me? Is that okay?
Perfect.
Good. So hello everyone. My name is Cédric Chéreau. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Untitled. We're based in Paris, in France, and Untitled is one of the 8 mature startups that were part of the Metro Target Retail Accelerator last year. When I explain what we do at Untitled, I usually start with a $1 bill. $1 or €1, it could be €1, is the average monthly reward that is distributed by retailers to their loyalty card holders every month. Just $1. And we all agree that $1 is not enough to influence the shopping behavior of anyone. The CEO of an international food retailer company once told me, you're right, $1 is not enough to make them choose my banner and my store more often than my competitors. But I have 10 million shoppers and 12 months in a year. So at the end of the year, it's a lot of money, $120 million spent for almost nothing, because my customers didn't notice anything and it didn't change their shopping behavior. That's exactly what we're trying to do at Untitled. This is the goal. We want to make sure that every euro invested in promotion and loyalty will generate value growth for retailers and brands. How we do this? We do this through the loyalty challenge solution that we created. We offer customers a chance to take up custom design challenges that will reward them if and only if they reinforce their loyalty towards the retailer first. They can save big, but they have to do something for the retailer first. They have to reinforce their loyalty. As we say in the US, it's really the no pain, no gain philosophy. What makes us so unique is running such powerful AI at scale, because each offer is completely personalized on 3 different parameters. The brand is one of his favorite brands. The threshold the customer has to reach is depending on its potential. The reward is also depending on his shopping behavior, meaning no more 40 cents of the box of cereal of Kellogg's that you were going to sell anyway, and no more 30% off when a 20% discount is enough for that customer on that specific product. In a nutshell, what we do at Untitled is personalization for incrementality. Today, our solution is rolled out at 10 large retailers like Carrefour and Auchan in Europe. We're also operating in the US. We are incentivizing millions of customers to spend a bigger share of their wallet with our retail clients, to make them choose Metro instead of Transgourmet more often. That's our goal. And talking about Metro, Loyalty Challenge was piloted by Metro Group last summer. We targeted nearly 20,000 traders in Russia over 6 weeks. Traders could select up to 16 different challenges that were entirely designed just for them. Participants were asked to pay 1 more visit at Metro during the period, and they also had challenges on spending on their favorite brands. Once again, all the thresholds were completely personalized. After 6 weeks of pilot, we managed to reach 10% participation, which is quite a success when you know that traders is usually a pretty hard population to engage. And we generated more than 11 rubles of incremental sales for each ruble distributed as a reward. In total, we calculated that the pilot generated more than 17 million of incremental spend. I'm sure you have plenty of questions. Happy to answer them now or maybe later, because I'll be here at the last session of the day. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you so much, Cedric. That was really great to also see those results of the pilot. As Cedric mentioned, he will be at the networking session later. So those of you who are interested to pilot with Metro, to get some tips from Cedric. He is going to share them. Thanks, Cedric. Chat to you later.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
And I think from Cedric, from the one French to the next French, right?
Yeah.
Happy to introduce Finex Cup, a new take on fast and flexible cash flow solution for VSEs and SMEs.
Yes, lovely. Thank you, Serena, and nice to meet everyone. So I'm Cedric Dessier, I'm the co-founder and CEO of Finex Cap. So I'm going to showcase you why I think you should work with us. So as Serena mentioned, Finex Cap, basically our idea is to provide simple cash solutions for B2B transactions. So we've been in operations for the past 5 years, but it's a company that we created already 8 years ago. And we've become actually the leading digital working capital solution or financing solution in continental Europe. We have now more than 35,000 companies actually using our services. We have raised more than 25 million euros of equity, and the way we finance companies is technically through a wholly owned asset management company, Finex Cap Asset Management, which we own, and which provides the financing to our clients. So we're working with leading partners to provide that financing, be it Société Générale as a settlement bank, Euler Hermes, that you probably all know as a credit insurance company, our auditors, and also some strategic refinancing investors we have. So our model actually comes from the acknowledgement that we've all witnessed to some extent the birth of the e-commerce for consumers with Amazon, Alibaba, transforming the way as we consumers technically buy goods or services. And we've seen the same thing happening in a B2B environment, except that it's always less visible. There is a crystallization of transactions on software environments, digital on e-commerce, but also in the stores. And our idea was to provide an IT architecture whereby we could provide working capital financing directly from the transaction environment. So we started with an invoice financing product, which is called Finex Cap. So it's digital factoring that we plugged onto B2B marketplaces, onto B2B retailers, in stores or physically, technically at the point of sales, or on the websites as well. And we expanded last year with a new solution, which is called Finex Pay, and which is a buy now, pay later solution. The idea is, for example, you're a customer of Metro. We'll talk about that a little bit later. You're a customer of Metro. You want to buy the goods before paying Metro for the goods, so you can sell the goods to your clients. You can use Finex Pay. We pay Metro. And as a client, you can actually pay us back when you get the cash in the bank. So we offload the distribution of our product to our partners. What are the key ingredients of the success of Finex Cap? First of all, we're omni-channel. We can work, as I just said, directly on your website. We can connect with APIs or an FTP server. We can do everything. Or we can work directly in the stores as well. So we can actually be plugged onto your CRM, onto your point of sale software, so that your clients have an omni-channel experience with us. Second of all, we're licensed in Europe to provide that service. So we can expand the service we now have in France, in Spain, and in Germany into other jurisdictions if we so select. We have been able actually to showcase that we can do the job that we promised to our investors. We have a very advanced data science model that we've enriched over the past 8 years. and which make, at the end of the day, which makes it so that the cost of risk has been very limited. We lost out of all the, like dozens of thousands of financing we've done, we lost less than 0.1% of the financing. And we provide, as I just said, that embedded finance experience for our users, which is very convincing when you look at the KPIs. I will talk a little bit further for that. Why you should work with us? First of all, we have proven, and we have strong KPIs to showcase that, we have proven that we increase the conversion of your plans. So a customer actually will come back more often or will be attracted to you because you have the buy now, pay later solution that we can provide. We obviously increase the average order value. So with the experience of Metro, we've already proven that even if it's a limited pilot program we have started with, the average order has increased by 30% with the customers using us. So it's significant. Obviously, we can increase traffic. The idea, if you're using us on your website, is to have more visitors coming to you. And at the end of the day, to have customers that are happy. I think that's the end goal of any normal salesperson. So the case study, how Metro France is delighting its customers by using FinexPay. So starting late July 2020, we launched the national program in all the 98 stores in France with Metro, so that Metro customers could actually select FinexPay to expand the payment date of their purchases. So in France, it's up to 60 days that we're working with Metro, but so that you know, we can work up to 90 days from a legal perspective. So client of Metro can use us directly in the stores or in directly as well on metro.fr, where they can actually buy goods directly from the stores of Metro. We pay Metro 100% of the face value of the transaction in 24 hours. We protect Metro against the insolvency of their clients. They don't need to take care of this. And we take care of the collection services. So Metro can focus on what Metro is focusing on, doing business with its customers. So the proposal, actually, the participating parties to FinexPay transaction, you get it. For Metro, for the merchant, you improve the working capital financing, you attract new clients, you retain clients, which is key in the current environment. You increase your revenues, you're protected from the credit insurance we have with l'ARMS, and you're relieved from the collection efforts. For the customer, you can get it as well. We answer the financing needs on the spot. It's instantaneous credit decision. We can finance exceptional purchases or normal purchases, day-to-day purchases. We can finance large purchases so that, you know, with Metro, the maximum referral limit we've extended is roughly 107 euros for a 60-day period, so it's significant. It's flexible. You pay as you go. You only pay when you use it. There is no personal guarantee, no paperwork. You get the credit limit we can extend in maximum 24 hours. Non-bank financing, we have proven with Metro in France that we can actually serve more than 90% of the client base, even during the pandemic. And the financing costs are deductible from your taxable income. You can see the KPIs with Metro. So again, we launched really in July, late July. It has been growing very, very significantly ever since. So we now have more than 3,500 registered users in 4 months, and it's growing at more than 400% cumulative compounded rate. So you see the KPIs, more than 80% of the clients actually use it, and the average usage rate is 51% of the credit limit we extend. Why we're pitching today? Because we think there is a tremendous amount of opportunities with prospective B2B partners in Europe. So the idea for us is to prioritize Spain, Portugal, Italy, Netherlands, Germany, and Poland, because those represent the most dynamic perspectives for us. You see a certain number of partners we have right in the target line that we want to work with. But if you are not on this list and you want to work with us, definitely happy actually to get connected. So feel free to reach out. I don't know if you have, if it was too long, too short.
Thank you. Thank you. I think that's okay. Might be a little noisier. Sorry. Excuse me, everyone. Thank you so much for that presentation. Will you be at the networking afterwards?
Yes, definitely. Most definitely. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. And for those of you who joined for the session with Olaf, he mentioned Floatify. And so here we've got Daniel. Definitely, I mean, during COVID, there were so many companies that were just at the right place at the right time, you know. And Daniel definitely with like quality assurance, that is our future, right? And so Floatify is a platform for digital quality assurance. Daniel, over to you.
Hello, thank you. My name is Daniel. I am the founder and CEO of Floatify. And let me explain to you what Floatify is and how it could be of help for you or for your customers. So let's dive into the problem for managing quality assurance if you have like a multi-store concept. That's basically our target groups, customers with more than one outlet. And if they have to document according to EU regulations, they face a number of problems. And most commonly, we heard from our customers that high administrative efforts on all levels is one big burden in quality assurance. To implement updates at short notice, especially during the lockdown phase earlier this year, changes were like on a not daily, but at least bi-daily, weekly basis. So this was really hard for customers to cope with. Prevention of manipulation of checklists for temperatures or hygiene inspections, disinfections, and so on is a typical problem we heard of from our customers. And access to relevant documentation from the centralized quality management is really hard to get, not only during lockdown, but if it is done on pen and paper way. So these are the most common problems we heard from our customers. And what we thought of is a solution to digitize the entire process of quality assurance. And let me quickly explain to you how this works. So Floatify now is a platform consisting of several different tools which you can use standalone or in combination. But it all starts with a web dashboard for the administration of your entire Floatify product chain. So you administrate your checklist, your tasks, whatever employees have to do in stores. And then the employee either uses the Floatify HACCP app to document whatever has to be documented in a store. May it be temperature, hygiene checks, deliveries, and so on. In a typical supermarket, there might be about 100 to 120 checklists with up to 300-400 tasks to comply with per day. Then we have the Floatify Audit app. It's an addition to the HACCP self-monitoring tool, which helps you to do store checks, supplier audits, safety checks on a monthly, weekly, or yearly base. And then you can analyze the data by city, state, or country. And to top it, we have an IoT integration, which helps our customers to integrate data loggers, washing dishwashers, other intelligent kitchen equipment to get data out of equipment that they don't have to document on hand, and faster access to all the information from your dishwasher if it has a problem and so on. And these components together help our customers to save up to 2.5 hours time per week, depending on your store or outlet size. We deliver live data of all tasks that have to be complied to. We have cross-site updates in minutes, not days, which was very convenient during COVID. And of course, with our technology, we minimize manipulation of data. So this being said, who are our customers so far? Currently, we have like more than 1,200 licenses in the market, in the DACH region, in Romania with Transgourmets, cash and carry stores, in Czech Republic, in Canada, and Singapore. And our segments are basically 4 verticals: food, retail, and wholesale, quick service restaurants, public canteens, and hotels. And on the other hand, we have partners. Of course, IoT partners like providers of machines like dishwashers, Horvath and Myco, but we also can integrate mousetraps, combi ovens, and so on. We have sensor integrations, several ones, and We have sales and distribution partners like TÜV Süd, who is doing global sales of Floatify with a white label solution, which we can also offer to other sales partners, which is available from Floatify. So now you have a rough idea what Floatify does, who is our target group, and for you, it might be interesting to consider, is it a solution we can use in our own company, or is it like an add-on service we can add to our customers? And both is possible with a white label solution or your internal. To give you a quick impression of what it looks like before I will come to a finish, there's a dashboard where you can see, like on a map, where are my locations, you can see results and so on. You see an integration of sensors, which can send, of course, alerts of different kinds. You see all the temperature stats and so on. And app-wise, on the left side, you see the audit app, very easy. It has to be working with your employees or with your customers' employees. So it has to be very basic. You can sign tasks, you can add videos, photos, PDFs to make them more independent, self-empowerment. And on the right-hand side, you see our audit tool. It follows similar UI, but it has all it needs for auditing your own company or external partners. This being said, I would be very much interested to learn what are your challenges with food safety or hygiene checks, which are probably one of the most important topics for the years to come, even when COVID will settle a little bit more in our daily life. So thank you for taking your time, and feel free to connect anytime after the session. Thank you.
Thank you, Daniel. I don't know if you even know this, but in my previous life, I was a food scientist. So very close to my heart, this HACCP.
I didn't know, Selina. So it's good to stay in touch.
Yeah. See you in the networking. Nice things to talk about.
Yeah. Thank you for taking your time.
Thank you. And so over to HORECA, who is tackling the problems of the current food system and producing like an alternative plant-based protein. And I can assure you, I've tasted it. It tastes good, guys. Over to you.
Serena, are you changing to me, to Tim?
Oh, sorry, Tim. I was told HORECA is next, but I mean, Vital, everyone, is the new takeaway packaging material. Digital reusable system for takeaway, delivery, and convenience food. Tim?
Yes, thank you so much, Serena, for the intro. Hi, everyone. My name is Tim. I'm super excited to pitch Vital to you today, and I would like you to take away 3 things from this pitch. 1, reusable packaging is the future for takeout, delivery, and much of convenience food. 2, Vital's digital packaging as a service platform maximizes the use of reusable containers for both vendors and consumers. And 3, if you want to partner up to make sustainable to-go food, please reach out to us. Now, I co-founded Vital together with 2 of my former colleagues from the Boston Consulting Group, with the vision to make reusable packaging as easy and convenient as single use. Now, we believe that reusable packaging is the future because it just doesn't make any sense to produce food containers worth 259 billion euros every year that end up as waste in the ocean or burned in landfills. Now, according to GS1 Germany, the standard setter in the retail industry, 75% of consumers are ready for reusable packaging if they can use it across retailers and restaurants alike. Now, Vital's digital packaging as a service platform consists of high-quality reusable containers with individual tracking QR codes and 2 apps, one for consumers and one for vendors. In addition, we have a live data platform tracking impact and savings for all participants. As a vendor, you sign up to our service, we charge you a sign-up fee, and you receive your first batch of Vital containers. Then you only pay on a pay-per-use basis whenever you save single-use packaging waste and costs. And the cool thing is, you only, or most of our partners, actually save money on their packaging by using Vital compared to their single-use packaging. In addition, since October, we are offering pre-ordering via the Vital app, adding another source of revenue for our partners and helping canteen operators to digitize and basically sell their food waste as well. As a consumer, you sign up to our service, register in the app, and then it's as easy as car sharing. With the app, you can borrow as many containers as you need at any partner outlet for free, without paying a deposit. You only pay if you don't return the containers within 14 days. And we use eco-nudging and reminding app messages to incentivize quick returns. This works so well that we achieve better return rates and a higher system efficiency than the German beer bottle deposit system. More than 98% of our containers are returned on time, and the average return time is just 3 days. Now, in the last couple of months, so we started Vital in September 2019 with 5 partners. We scaled it to more than 500 partners all over Germany right now. The Rewe Group is piloting our solution since September at their salad bars, and we are adding 1,500 new app users every week. So you see, not only Corona, but also our business is growing exponentially. And we see that across all our platform KPIs, transactions, registered users, and partners. So please partner with us and help us to bring sustainable to-go food all over Europe. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for that. I'm definitely looking forward to using your product.
Cool. Is there time for questions?
No, I think that we still have about 5 companies to go through. So I hope you'll be joining us at the networking session.
Sure. Looking forward to it. Thank you, everyone.
Great stuff. Thanks so much.
Bye-bye. Ciao.
Okay. And so yeah, we've got HORECA. So as I said, I can vouch that this plant-based protein is really delicious, and I'm so happy to introduce HORECA to you, who's tackling the current food system problems. Over to you.
Is it my turn?
Yes.
Cool. Okay. Sorry, because I don't see anyone because I'm in the presenting mode. So I'm Bernard. I'm one of the co-founders of Eura Foods. We are so happy to be here to explain like how we changed from we moved from activism, because Mark and me, we were both activists, to corporate activism, because we think from food tech innovation and spreading consciousness, we can have the impact we want to see in the world. And when we think about products, we don't think products that just solve one of the issues, but all the issues. And that means animal welfare, that means sustainability, but that also means health. And until now, we've seen the plant-based meat industry shown a very good sensorial experience. There are many companies doing great products in the world, and I consider them allies. But we have the challenge of making them also very nutritious, very healthy. And that's why we put the Mediterranean heritage as a core of how we do products. And that means always working with healthiest fats. We work with extra virgin olive oil. We try to reduce as much as we can the label, the amount of ingredients we use. And also we want high performance protein. So very less calories per protein. And here we have some examples. With the new burger we just launched, the 2.0, we can see 4 grams of fat plus just 1 gram of saturated fats, while all the competitors have more, which I don't want to say it's better or worse. It's just the way we see how this range can be expanded and introduced in many kitchens. So reducing and breaking all the barriers. Also, when we see on the amount of ingredients, the R&D team is focused on reducing, just using those ingredients are needed to get the meat experience, but not adding anything that does not add any value and that also works with oils. We just work with one oil, and that's like has been the 6 months we've been working, 6-8 months working with a fat analog made out of extra virgin olive oil that works as a coconut oil, but with the good things of olive oil. When you see all the nutritionals, like it's crazy, like how much effort the R&D team have put in, like making products that when you turn and you see the label, consumers say, "Oh wow, it's incredible! How can they get this meat experience out of vegetables?" And at the end, it's very easy. Like all these companies here, we have seen that the things that make meat, like in the vegetable kingdom as well. So we just want to find them in the vegetables kingdom, but in the healthiest way. So yeah, very healthy, but how tasty is it? Because if it's just healthy, but it's boring, no one wants to add this in a restaurant, no one wants to eat this at home. So we've been the past 3 years and a half, like testing our products and improving our products in the Spanish market, also like now Portugal, Holland, Singapore, Hong Kong, Chile, etc. And like all the reviews are crazy. Like restaurants are selling more and more, and all the reviews are like saying it tastes like meat, but it's not meat. So this is like a great point to continue expanding. Here, I'm going to go very quick through the products. We started with a chicken-alike range. Here we have different flavors, but then if you want, I can give you more details, but it's all Nutri-Score A, best ingredients. Same with the burger, Nutri-Score A, like as I said, very, very clean label. But we just don't want to be like the chicken and burger like partner. We want to be the partner for the plant-based meat section. And that means creating all those products that we love to find in the butcher shop, but are not yet in the plant-based meat option. So like in the following 2-3 months, we will be launching chicken nuggets plus sausages. And at the beginning of next year, chicken burger, mincemeat, always with the same standards, always Nutri-Score A, olive oil, BRC, AFS. And we do this because we want to change the world. So changing the world means being attractive. So working in a marketing perspective to stand out and also having the minimum impact. It would not make sense to make this with all plastic or like all unsustainable materials. So we put a lot of effort there, and that's why our packaging like use least plastics as possible. And we work not as a brand, but as a social movement. And that's why like we have like boomed social media. We, in the south of Europe, we are the company like in the food sector with more engagement, with more followers, comparing with the competitors. Like it's crazy. We have like almost 5% engagement, which is like, you cannot see anything like that, but it's just easy because we work as we were in influencer. And that's why we get so much organic love from our idols, like Football Club Barcelona, MotoGP, Atletico de Madrid, like celebrities are using these products because they want to be part of a revolution. It's what's happening in the US with Impossible or Beyond. They get like so much attention from celebrities. So we are getting this from European stars. And that's like bringing POS traffic to restaurants and to stores. Like we have a lot of data about this because we are very data driven as well. And this brings us to like being the Spain #1 rotation, both in restaurant and supermarkets. In Spain, we like work with people like not just in Spain, but like here you can see we work with Macro, which is Metro in Spain. We work with the main supermarket chains like Carrefour. We work in Chile with Totus, etc., and food service, which is 0.5%, at least before the coronavirus outbreak, was 50% of the revenue. We have a lot of like partners that are also delivering great experiences, both in Europe, but also like in Singapore with Grand Hyatt and other hotel chains. And now we are at that moment that we want to explode this, bringing it everywhere. So we are trying to find partners that spread this and help us to deliver this, because we just want to focus in R&D and community building. So we need partners that help us to deliver these products around the world, So that's why we are in this financial round, where like here you can see some of the investors, also who is accelerating us or who has been accelerated us, and also some awards. And here are the main countries we will focus on, especially like conquering Europe is the main focus at the moment for the following 2 years. Also, we will be like touching other markets, like we're trying stuff in Middle East, China, and also some parts of North Africa. And as I'm not sure how much time I have, but like just a quick summary. We born from activists.
Yeah.
We make wild food. Yeah, sorry.
Like if I give you 10 seconds.
Yeah, just very healthy, but also great products that bring people on your store, on your restaurant, and like that's successful at the end. Yeah. So thank you, and sorry for all the information I gave.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Really appreciate you pitching, showing up. I know that you had a couple of things. So thank you so much, and hope to see you a little later in the networking session.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Great.
Have a nice
Thank
afternoon.
you. Ciao. The next company is Keytro. That Keytro automates data collection and gives action-oriented insight that allows for waste reduction and optimization of your kitchen's resources. I'm very excited to introduce Keytro. Have fun.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. Can you see my slides?
Yes, we can see
Perfect.
that.
Cool. Hi, my name is Anastasia, and I'm one of the founders of Keytro. So it's probably safe to say that we all know this situation, and little did we know that when throwing away this banana, we just contributed to a massive problem, because 1/3 of all the food produced ends up being wasted along the global supply chain. Now, not only does this come at a massive cost for the environment, it also comes at a big cost for the economy. It is estimated that $2.6 trillion are wasted every year because of food waste. Now, looking at the hospitality industry, they have a few challenges they're facing, and one of which is that they have a lack of overview of how much and what fills up their bins at the end of the day. Yet, they waste roughly 20% of all the food they purchase. Now, at Keytro, we believe what gets measured gets done, and this is why we have invented a fully automated system designed to measure and monitor food waste in restaurants and canteens. And here's how it works. We place this device in the kitchen. Every time they throw something away, we take an image, we capture the weight, and then we send this data into our software where we're using image processing and machine learning technologies to identify what has been thrown away. We then show our customers their data in a comprehensive way, and so they can log on to a dashboard and see exactly how much they threw away, the cost connected to it, and so on. Based on this data, they can optimize their work processes and work more resource efficiently. And the best thing is they also save costs. Since we started in 2017, we've measured in over 80 properties. And our customers are mainly bigger hotel chains, restaurant groups, canteens, such as hospital canteens, but also retirement homes or school canteens. We charge them a monthly subscription fee that includes pretty much everything. We rent a device to them. And depending on how long they work with us and also, of course, the property type, this fee can also be discounted. The team behind Keytro is quite a mix between hospitality and tech. Co-founder Naomi and myself, we studied at the hospitality school in Switzerland, and this is also how we got the idea of creating this product. A few words about the next milestones. We are looking to grow our team. We currently have 4 open positions by February. We then also plan on CE certifying our hardware so we can start expanding into European countries. And for that, we also need funds, of course. So we've raised up to now more than 2.5 million Swiss francs, and we're looking to start raising again in January. So if you think you could be a potential partner for the internationalization or would be interested in learning more about our fundraising, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Anastasia. Beautiful presentation also. Thank you very much. I hope to see you later in the networking session.
Yeah, perfect.
Okay, great stuff. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. So next up, we have JustSnap. JustSnap has an innovative receipt processing technology which enables brands to conduct customer activations with high return on investment in any offline or online sales channel while connecting with their customers and providing valuable shopping cart data for retargeting. Over to you.
Hi, Selena. Thank you for the nice introduction. Hi, everyone. My name is Ahmed, and I am the CEO and co-founder of JustSnap, alumni of 2017 Retail Acceleration Program. In JustSnap, we are targeting one big challenge of all the brands that are trying to reach out to their consumers and incentivize them to be one of their consumer or continue to be their consumer. So doing any traditional campaign management needs really, it's upgrading. There are many challenges like integration to the POS systems of the retailers at real time, or printing codes on pack, or doing any activity within the shop. It has big challenges, and it requires a bit of technology to get integrated to all those systems. But the market is fast, and the brands are really trying to act fast and try to understand who their consumers are and why they are buying their brands, or what else they can sell out to those consumers. So in JustSnap, we have developed a technology that enables consumers to participate into those shopper activities in a very flawless way, a very easy way. All we are asking for the consumers to participate into those shopper activities, brand activities, simply by taking a photo of their receipts, invoices, e-invoices from any retailer they want, whether it's an online or whether it's an offline retail channel. So as a white label technological solution, we are capable of enabling the brands, mobile apps, campaign micro websites, or even conversational commerce bots such as Facebook Messenger, Instagram Messenger, and all those that consumers upload their receipts. And in an instant, we can capture the whole data out of the receipt, make the analysis, imply the campaign conditions, and report to consumers instantly on the spot. As mentioned, we're capable of doing this in all mediums so that consumer easily can opt into any brand touch point and will be able to participate into those activities, and we can capture the whole shopping data as we are selling all the time, that the sales receipt itself or the invoice is the golden source of information. From that information, we can obtain the whole demographics of the consumers, their retailer preferences, and the day and the hour they want to shop, and the money they spend in average, and the products within that receipt, and your basket values, and all type of behavioral segmented data can be easily obtained from this receipt at real time. That gives us a huge advantage of not just enabling the campaign management in the offline stores where still like more than 80% of the shopping continues with the same advantages as doing it on the online, but we also extract a lot of consumer shopping insight, which we enable both the brands and the retailers to real-time retarget those consumers, and even to we're able to measure the online to offline conversion analysis by just simply identifying what the consumer have seen your ad up to the point that they participated into the campaign and bought your products. So we had implemented thousands of campaigns, millions of participations with millions and millions of receipts being processed that gave us the advantage to implement in many markets of the Europe with identifying the retailer receipts, consumer analysis, and SKUs being identified specifically. Even they have been represented in a different manner in all different retail stores. We are able to capture the data out of the receipts and map them into the right product category, which gives us a huge advantage of identifying the values of the products and the consumer behaviors. And not just only doing this on the traditional retail channels, but we are also capable of doing it in the HORECA channel, which also is a great advantage for brands to run shopper activities in the HORECA channel, so that take a beverage company or a brewery company, a customer of yours, Metro Group, for example, implementing a solution in the restaurant or quick serving restaurant or HORECA channel, where the consumers can participate simply by taking a photo of their receipts and participating, where the brand can also incentivize the consumers and also enabling the HORECA channel with their support by capturing a lot of data about the consumers' preferences in those HORECA places where they have visited. So as you can easily imagine, most of the FMCG companies are our clients for a long time. We are enabling them to understand why their consumers are buying them, and what are the options to give them personalized offers through in every retail channel, whether online or offline, on a personalized level, and keep the connection between the consumers and the brands based on instant activities, not relying on only price discounts or other methods which are diminishing the margins. What we're capable of incentivizing the consumers with something which is valuable for them, which has a meaning in their life, such as digital coupons that they can use in their lives, such as a discount from digital library or an education program from Udemy, or take it as a special discount from a restaurant which they love to go and dine. So in a nutshell, what we do is that we connect the brands and the consumers in a most optimal way, so that the brands and the retailers can benefit of consumers' data out of the receipts or invoices they are sending to our platform in exchange of being a part of the campaign. So this is all, Selena, I want to say. And I'll be more than happy to answer any questions in the networking session.
Thank you very much for your time and the presentation, Ahmed. And I'm also looking forward to catching up a little later.
Thank you.
Good. And so the last company to pitch today is Via Delivery. So just Via Delivery promises to deliver locally at a fraction of the cost of traditional carriers by empowering pure play e-commerce. Take it away.
Okay, so hi, I'm Mitchell, and it's Via Delivery. Meet like classical pure play e-commerce store, and it definitely has a problem. That problem is called last mile problem, because sometimes shipping costs more than the actual item they are trying to sell. On the other hand, we have those brick and mortar retailers, and it's 2020, they are suffering from declining foot traffic. Could we potentially do something with like both of these problems? Well, while standard retail stands for buy in store, pick up in store, that's like a brick and mortar, and e-commerce, pure play e-commerce stands for buy online and get delivery, we are helping brick and mortar stores to generate incremental revenue by bringing more foot traffic to their stores. And the way we do it is some kind of advanced version of BOPIS, which is like buy online, pick up in store, while the pure play e-commerce are doing online sales, and brick and mortar stores become a peak point for online parcels, so that they both like the first benefit from the cheaper and convenient delivery, and the second could get extra foot traffic. As a platform, we just link to multiple pure play e-commerce stores, and we connect to multiple brick and mortar retail chains and manage the data flow as well as the flow of actual parcels. And if you are the owner of brick and mortar retail chain, the reason you could consider doing that is first, you get those incremental revenue, because like any foot traffic is something you can convert to extra sales. And of course, you have broader visibility, and you definitely stand out from the competitors who do not have options like that. But let's go a little bit deeper into it. Now you have two trucks. One of them is like shipping your normal grocery, for example, to your stores. And now the second truck is delivering online parcels. Does that make sense at all? And in wire delivery, we say no, it doesn't. Because since you have excessive resources in your supply chain, you could actually add those parcels and get them delivered to your store. And that could be the incremental source of revenue for you, as you can basically monetize the empty space on existing trucks. The way we do it is we ship all those parcels to your distribution centers, and from that point you deliver them to store, and the online shopper comes for a pickup and becomes your extra foot traffic. For logistics side, what you get is, okay, you are paid for every single parcel that is delivered and picked up in your store, and we help you with integrating into your standard routes and into your standard schedule so that you don't need to send any like additional trucks for those deliveries. And we also provide the full IT support for this process. Why we do it? Well, because we know like 62% of those who come for a pickup are actually converted to extra sales. At the moment, we have over 15,000 locations from brick and mortar side and over 4,000 pure play e-commerce partners. We have a customer advisory board that is like well known in the industry, including vice president of Target and senior vice president of CVS Farm that is responsible for retail division, as well as Alex Ha from Amazon, who is the head of product delivery. And the reason we are there right now is very, very simple. There are like 16 billion parcels delivered in the United States and in EU annually. And just imagine that even a small portion of this huge number could become your extra foot traffic. So that's it for me. And it's via delivery. We are bridging the gap between pure play e-commerce and brick and mortar stores. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your time and that presentation. Really appreciate it, enjoyed it, and hope that you will be joining for the networking session for anyone who wants questions or who has questions for you and wants to connect.
Sure.
Okay, great. And that wraps up our company pitches for day one. Thank you so much for everyone who joined, for the startups who prepared and were part of this day. It was really so much fun to see some of the alumni companies and the growth that they've been going through since we saw their actual demo day presentations back from 2016, 2017, 2018. So really, really lovely to see that growth, and very excited for some of the new solutions also. We are actually 5 minutes into the next session. So for those of you who have just joined, actually, I just want to take this opportunity for everyone. So if you've joined like from Olaf's session, or if you've just joined for this panel discussion, welcome. On behalf of the Excel team, we are so happy to have you here online. Some of you might have joined us online during the COVID program in May, but then also some of you are already part of our physical community back when Sylvia and some of the team already started that. So welcome, we're really, really happy to have you here. My name is Serena, and I will be here with you today. I will be introducing Johanna and the panel speakers today later, and then also be facilitating the networking session, which will start in about an hour. We will also explain the tool at that session. What I do want to say before I introduce Johanna and Sophie and Carl Yo is that even though this is going to be a panel discussion, there's going to be time for open questions from the audience. So down here, I believe, is Slido. Put your questions in there and we will be able to see that, myself and Johanna, and we, at the end of the session, will be able to ask or at least convey the questions to Sophie and Carl Yo. And so as you know, because you signed up for this session or joined it, this is specifically a chat about internationalization, scaling, and IPOing, if that's a word. But so Johanna, who is going to be the facilitator, and I will introduce her in a bit, is she's going to have an interview or discussion with Sophie Freire, who is the co-founder and CEO of LISA, and Carl Yo Salen, who is the founder of LocaFox, but he's also heading up the Europe leg for CESL, and they have been involved either internationalizing from Europe to the US or from the US to Europe, and then also, IPOing. So quickly, Johanna is going to introduce Sophie and Carl Yo, but I'm happy to introduce Johanna. Johanna, as most of you will know, because she's been part of all of our programs for such a long time, is a mentor at our programs and a consultant. She has spent the first part of her career in investment banking, providing strategic advice on mergers and acquisitions, IPOs, that's why we have her here for this big discussion, and other capital raising with a particular focus on media, telecom, and technology. She now has a portfolio of activities in the startup world, including working with us here at Metro, sitting on the board of 3 software tech businesses at various stages of scaling. She is the chairperson of QStory in the UK. She's a non-executive director at Web Financial Group in Spain, and also Hive Online in Denmark. She is a venture partner at the ATI Boeing Accelerator in London, and she's an angel investor with more than 40 early stage companies. Johanna, thank you so much for your time. I'm really looking forward to this session and the questions that you will be asking these 2 very impressive people on the screen that I see now. So over to you. I'll be listening.
Wonderful. Thank you, Serena. Can you hear us?
Yes, perfect.
Yep.
Perfect. Wonderful. Thank you, everyone, for joining. Firstly, I wanted to welcome you all. We hope that you'll find this session useful. I think our panelists have got amazing insights from both what they currently do and what they've done before that, which I'm hoping they can distill into some wisdom that you can take away. So let me start by introducing them. Carl Yo Salen has got 11 years of experience in building international tech companies. He's currently the managing director at CESL, which I met as part of the Metro Target program, which unusually for me, working in an accelerator program, was in the middle of going public, which was odd but wonderful. And they have been doing financing buy now, pay later solutions out of the US, and are now bringing that to Europe, which is what he's helping them to do. But previously, he has a number of other very interesting experiences scaling companies across 13 markets on 4 continents. Among other roles, he was a managing director at Groupon, at Rocket Internet, and at LocaFox. So I think he's going to have a lot to share as we go through some of the key elements of scaling. Also joining me is Sophie, when I met her, Smethman, and now Freire. She's the co-founder and CEO at LISA. We also met at Metro, one of the earliest accelerators I had joined, when she was in the early stages of dreaming up this business. She's always been very passionate about human-centered approach to leveraging innovation in tech for retail. And I think that emerged out of her broad experience, but particularly in her 10 years working in big box retail for Metro, where her last role was innovation manager. I think lots of people talk about businesses being beneficiaries of this very difficult period that we're all going through. But I think Sophie bringing live stream shopping, I think, has had an opportunity to at least have a very large captive audience. and a lot of retailers desperate to find ways to make those a more interesting experiences. So I'm sure she's going to have a lot of interesting things to share. Maybe we could start by each of you just spending 2 or 3 minutes saying sort of where your business is on scaling, and what do you think the next phase is going to be about? Maybe Sophie, you'd like to start.
Sure. Thanks so much, Joanna. Yeah, so actually, as you just mentioned, COVID has had quite a impact on our business in the sense that, as I like to say, basically it seems like retail has awakened out of this beauty sleep in Europe and the US when it comes to their e-commerce businesses and online customer experiences. Can you still hear me? Just checking, because your picture's a bit... Okay, great. Your picture's a bit choppy on my end, so just... And it's interesting because in China, actually, I just got the latest figures, 17% of all e-commerce is already done via live streaming. So, why are we this far behind? And that really never made sense to us. We were so sure this would hit eventually. But it has taken quite some time. And then indeed, sort of March this year, we had launched our MVP last year, tested with 2 big customers. We joined the Accelerator Program beginning of the year. And then in March, everything went into lockdown. There was like total silence. Everyone was in shock. And then within 2 weeks, basically everything flipped. And within this year, we've grown from 2 active customers to 17 active big enterprise customers in 5 countries. So that's been quite wonderful. The productive lockdown.
Okay. Maybe you could just add one thing on what are you going to focus on in this next phase to build on the 17?
So
sort of scaling priorities.
Something I think we'll talk a little bit later about is the fact that scaling has become possible entirely digitally. So we're already in 5 countries now. We're probably going to be in 7 countries by end of the year. And given the infrastructure we have and the way we work, we don't actually have really international barriers to entry anymore. So our focus for next year will be more on sort of distilling out what has made live shopping successful with customers this year, with all the different ranges of customers we've tested, piloted with, and gone live with. What's the key success factors, and how can we translate that into a sales strategy for next year to really proactively expand and further scale the business.
Thank you. Kalya, maybe you could tell us a little bit about Sezzle and what you're planning to do.
Sure. Thank you very much for the nice introduction. So Sezzle is a company that is now 4 years old, has around 20,000 merchants in the portfolio, around 3.8 million users. It IPO'd last year, as already mentioned. It then expanded in 2019 into Canada very successfully, and recently into India. And the next step that we are looking into is Europe, right? What is Sezzle? Sezzle is an alternative payment platform that is focused on the buy now, pay later sector. So the core service is essentially offering interest-free installment services for online users. There are a range of other services around that. Unfortunately, I can't talk a lot about our expansion strategy in Europe. I'm the managing director of Sezzle Europe, as you already mentioned, Joanna. And in charge of rolling it out here in Europe. But because we are a public company, I can't give you more information than the information that is public, right? Otherwise, I would share inside information. So I'm going to talk more about my past experience, which I do believe is more applicable to the people listening in, because Sezzle is a very specific beast, right? It's a fintech company in a highly regulated market. And the experiences which I had in other companies, I think might be more interesting to dive into.
Okay, wonderful. Maybe we could start with how you set out. What are your thoughts on setting out an expansion strategy, whether that's driven by sales, marketing, partnerships,
sure,
product-led, whatever? I mean, I hear everything, so it's more about how do you think about it?
Yeah, I think you probably even have to take a step back, right, and think about what's the high-level strategy that you want to use for expansion, right, or scaling. And scaling for me means always in that context internationalizing. And I think you have always these 2 very strong different poles, right? The one pole being the very controlled product market fit approach, right? Another pole being the super hyper aggressive blitzscaling approach. And I was doing both, right? With Locafox, we did the very controlled product market fit approach, and with Rockets, I used to do the blitzscaling approach. And just to clarify what this means, right? So the product market fit is essentially the idea that you say, okay, I have a product or service working in one market, and I want to now move into the next market with my bread and butter business, and I want to validate this, right? I want to validate in the most efficient way that this service is also kind of satisfying the needs and demands of the consumers in the new market. And efficiency really means that you're trying to keep the cost as low as possible, right? It's all about having a small burn rate and increasing runway, and really, focusing on hitting this product market fit before you scale. And that's very interesting for companies that don't have a lot of cash, for companies that move into new markets, into nascent markets, blue ocean kind of markets, right, where they have a first mover advantage or there's no real competition, or companies that have a very strong competitive advantage, technology-wise, or any other type of advantage, which is very hard to copy, right? So that's kind of the companies that should look at that approach. But then you have the other extreme, and that extreme is the aggressive blitzscaling approach, right? Which is kind of the rocket way, where you essentially sacrifice efficiency for speed. And unlike the PMF approach, it's not about increasing your runway or scaling after you hit PMF. It's about scaling as fast as possible into as many markets as possible, right? Generating as much growth as possible. And here you have a very high gain, high risk strategy, right? Where if you win, then you become the biggest and most dominant player and attract a lot of capital and talent and so on. If you lose, the costs are very, very high. And I think you always have to approach it from that perspective, right? This blitzscaling strategy is for companies which have a lot of money, access to capital, which need to have a speed to market situation, have very strong competitors, and they need to move fast, and which really don't have a clear USP, right? So it's about out-executing your competition. So every startup has to first think about these two poles and then see in what range or how they balance these two. And only once they understood that, then you think about the more execution-driven steps, if that makes sense.
That does make sense. Sophie.
Well, for us, it's been an interesting journey. I think so last year we launched our MVP of the live stream shopping software plugin, Lisa, that we have now, which enables live shopping in e-commerce. And I mean, at the time, even though in China this was already huge, in Europe, if you went and spoke to people about live shopping or live commerce, I mean, we were at OMR last year, for example, in May, we just launched the MVP. Literally no one knew what we were talking about. And this was last year in May, right? And it's like, oh, so doing something with VR in retail? No, live commerce, like just using live streams, make them shoppable, make them very fun and engaging, and sell off of them. So we had to, just by the nature of what it was, even though it's so simple to explain, there was still this huge education piece that had to be done last year. So we decided it was really critical to be highly efficient, cost efficient, that we build a very simple MVP, which already conveys in terms of user experience how awesome, let's say, and how well this kind of format can work. But it was always the product strategy to not be dependent on integrations, for example, into retail, so that retailers could test really quickly and lightly and discover whether this format works for them. And it was always part of the strategy not to be dependent. Doesn't mean it can't make sense, but not to be dependent on partnerships, for example, with agencies for sales, or are dependent on partnerships with e-com platforms and therefore needing APIs to scale. All of that might make sense in sort of phase 2 and phase 3 for growth, but in phase 1 that we're kind of getting out of now, it was really important for us to be independent, light and flexible and efficient, to discover and learn with the product, and really only to develop the product and add on to it when we saw that across a bigger range of customers, there was really a need for a new feature that would actually add value for, as we call it, the sort of highest common denominator approach. Only then would it actually be added as a feature. And I think that's kept us nimble. And that's sort of keeping it simple and focused has also sort of set us up for this sudden growth that has now come. Otherwise, if we would have been too complex, not flexible, we would never have been able to stem the growth that we've had in the last month. So first, it was indeed educating the market last year with the MVP. So we went to as many fairs as we possibly could just to get our name out there and to tell people about what live commerce is, entered competitions, these kind of things. Then end of the year, we focused on strategic partnerships. So we joined the Founders Factory Accelerator in London and partnered with L'Oréal, just to get the name and again, the sort of the idea of live shopping out there. And then now in phase 3, it's really about the product strategy and how to design the product for even faster international scaling.
Thank you. I think one of the things that was interesting for me in your, as you described product strategy, was having the discipline to only innovate the product further when there was consensus that there was a reason to do that. And I think it echoes something that Olaf said in his session about you really need to focus to be meaningful. And I see often people getting distracted by lots of requests for lots of things that are interesting. But I think that discipline takes a lot of courage when you have clients wanting things. And I think it pays off if you can be disciplined about doing it. So
it's saying no as always the hardest thing, especially, I mean, we're a small, tiny little startup, growing, but still small, catering to the big enterprises of this world. And, the usual habit is, here's my wish list of 20 features I'd like to have. And it's like, yeah, well, maybe let's start with the simplest form and then discover together what your users actually want, and finding a balance between not really saying no and sort of helping your customers, the retailers, the e-commerce players, to learn what actually works with their audience and what users actually want. Is negotiating that, let's say, is probably one of the hardest things to do. Yeah, for sure.
One of my other questions is, how have you, and maybe Carlo, we should start with you. How do you think of product development in terms of technical product development? How good does it have to be at each stage? Because I think there's as you try to sell into larger corporates, and Sophie, you're doing some of that too, is the desire for sort of enterprise grade type infrastructure is quite difficult at the beginning for startups. And sometimes it's a gating item, sometimes it's not. And so I wonder if you could both talk a little bit about that and how you sort of manage that as you grow your business.
Yeah, so I mean, it depends a little bit what your business model is, right? I think there's a big difference between enterprise business models or consumer business models or SMB business models. But in general, the way we tackle that is, it's really about first entering a new market with your core product. You might customize it to the point that it is necessary, but you don't really start innovating until you hit this product market fit, right? And it's really about understanding when you achieve product market fit. You really need to understand what are the KPIs, the proof that you have now validated this market, right? Once you reach this point, then you can start to innovate and really customize according to the local specific needs of the specific market. But it's very, very hard to jump into a market and innovate from the outset, because innovation always goes through the same cycles, right? We talked about MVPs. You have only so many bullets in your gun, right? You can only do so many cycles. So better you stick to what you know, and once you crack the market, then you really, you do the rest 20% of really understanding what's different here. How do you improve the last 10, 20, 15%? So I think that's the approach that we are choosing. But again, it also depends on the strategy. This is something which you have to afford. Sometimes people don't have the runway to do that. So it depends a little bit on your go-to-market strategy and the cash that you have available, really.
Yeah.
And well, from my side, I think I already talked a bit about our product strategy, but also looking into the future. This balance between customization possibilities for our customers and keeping it as out of the box as possible, and this sort of highest common denominator approach is something that we very much believe in and want to keep, because it's, in our opinion, the key to being scalable. As much as Carl just said, the further you move into the highly customized area of things and you integrated, the more individual solutions you have for each customer at some point. So we're really trying to stick in that sweet spot, everybody to learn together. And if we do customized features, then to see whether those would also add value to others, and to keep going like that as long as it's possible.
I also think, to add on that notion here, is, again, if you are a bigger company, I think it's always very important to also think about product in terms of how you set up your team structure. And if you, for example, again, reference Rocket, right? If you would go into new regions, I think it's very advisable that you set up a dedicated product team within the region that is under the existing tech stack, right? So it shouldn't be a silo by itself, because that never really works. But you should be not dependent on the prioritization within the HQ, wherever it sits, right? Because what's always going to happen, you're always going to be, you can't plan, because there might be other priorities which are not important for your market, but more important for the group as a whole, right? So having a separate dedicated team that works under the existing tech stack is, I think, extremely important to really build the features necessary to move fast and enter markets fast in internationalization.
Yes, that makes a lot of sense. Maybe just a person if people can't afford a team at the initial stage, but yes. Could we talk a little bit about customers and how you go about it? Because often innovation starts where you get a POC or a project, but that's not the same as signing up a full enterprise license and getting through procurement and all the joys that brings. Could you talk a little bit about your experiences and some of the pitfalls and how to avoid them?
Who would you like to start?
Maybe start with an example if that makes it easy.
Okay. Well, no, I was thinking, who of us do you want to start? I'll just jump in. Again, for us, this is still, let's say, relatively early phase, even though we've grown so much this year. We've gone through that sort of growth cycle and different stages of growth so quickly that we're only just sort of stopping. Like, I think we now had, Cyber Monday, Black Friday, and we have Christmas business coming up. And since we're a retail tech startup, it means that we're completely tied to the cycles of our customers. So we're only just getting into a sort of, okay, 2 more weeks, then Christmas business will be through. And then, we'll have some time to actually reflect on what our sales funnel looks like and whether we're managing it efficiently, all these kind of things. But I think from the very beginning, and this is almost more a company culture thing, how do you want to work with customers, and how do you want to, when you're talking to them the first time, how well informed are you? And one thing that with our sales team we do quite regularly is that rather than doing like the typical demo session where every customer gets to see the exact same 2 or 3 things, we start these sessions more as interviews where we really try to find out from them, why are they interested in doing live shopping? Because there are many different reasons for brands or retailers to look into the space. Some of them are much more interested in top of the funnel sort of community building and engagement. Others are much more interested in actually driving and pushing sales as much as possible. So really depends what they're trying to do with this new format, this new experience. And then we basically cater the pitch, if you will, or even if it's just a demo, we just try to cater the conversation a bit more to what we've learned that they actually want to do with it. And that has proven to be quite effective because they feel like, we're listening to them. And then the second step, we also really try to learn what skills and infrastructure the retailer or the enterprise already has to support live commerce. So it's something we try to navigate as early as possible in the sales discussions to get a sense of, how quickly will they be able to flip the switch to make this format work for them, or will they be a customer that will need more support from our side? So we try to sort of categorize and cluster that at the beginning already. And other than that, key lesson from COVID is a strong online presence, which we definitely need to rebuild our website, and a great SEO ranking, because that's the way people find startups today, and there's really no other way.
Yeah, I guess from my perspective, no matter what company I build, and if you talk about customer acquisition, there was 2 things which were, at least in every company, very helpful for me. The first thing is, every time you start a new market, right, you you need to understand the customer acquisition funnel. And we very much use a lot of established frameworks. And the one which we use the most is the Pirate framework of Dave McClure. It's called the R framework. I mean, probably everybody knows, or most people know it. And it's a super nice framework because it goes through the entire funnel, right? It starts from awareness. You understand how many people you can reach, and then acquisition, how many people come to your website, how many people then convert, right? How many people then pay, and how many people who paid and essentially refer you to more customers, right? So awareness, acquisition, activation, retention, revenue, and referral, hence R, right? And that's for us really useful because you always have the situation that this funnel is somewhere broken in different markets because you have different kind of customers, right? And we always start with that to see where the problem lies, right? Sometimes, we get to activation, the conversion is really good to sign up, but they don't pay. So, okay, maybe our pricing is broken, right? Or sometimes realize that, the problem lies early in the funnel. We have a lot of awareness, but, not a lot of people come to the website. So the marketing campaign doesn't work, right? So I think this is one thing which I really urge a lot of people to look at, and it also focuses you in terms of KPIs, right? Because I see very often, I'm a mentor now for I don't know how many years, and I see too many startups looking at too many KPIs, right? It's all less is more, right? It's always this focus, and these frameworks really help you to set the right focus. So that's maybe one thing which is kind of my biggest learning in terms of customer acquisition. And the second thing is also, which I see very often, and also I need to remind myself to do it more, is too many founders are too distant from their customers, right? It's this constant customer feedback, right? You have certain departments in your company like customer service, like sales, who have constant exchange with real customers. And really understanding what's going on there is very important. There needs to be customer feedback loops between those departments and the rest of the company, especially product, right? But also the management. I really like companies which put the management into the customer service for a week to just talk to customers.
Me too.
Because I think it's extremely helpful to understand the customer, but also understand what customer service actually is doing. And for example, we have a Slack channel where every review that is published about a CESL is being automatically published to the entire company, right? And we use a lot of customer feedback for the all hands and town halls and so on. And I think especially in the beginning, once you enter a new market, this is so important. And it's difficult. Even for me now, it's difficult. I don't do it enough, right? Because you have so much to do. But you really should do that every time you enter a new market because customer needs and desire is always different, right? And the nuances is what counts, right? What makes a difference. So I guess these are my two biggest recommendations in terms of customer acquisition.
Very helpful. Could I just ask one follow-up question? It sounded like your description of your funnel was a B2C funnel, but I presume it equally applies to B2B, but if it doesn't, maybe you could sort of explain a little more.
Yeah, I think it equally applies to also B2B. I think the better model is in the Pirate funnel. I forgot the name, to be honest. It was another one, which doesn't come to my mind now. But essentially, it's always the same, right? It leads you the steps, no matter if you acquire businesses or consumers, are very similar, right? You need to understand how to acquire them. Is it scalable? How much does it cost, right? Are they converting? Are they using? Are they paying? I think the paying is often the most important thing. I'm also a big advocate of having frameworks which force you to go into the payment questions very early. There's too many startups which kind of delay the payment portion, right? They say like, yeah, let's scale, right? And we're gonna charge them later once they really need us. But if you give somebody a half-empty can of Coke, he might take it, right? If you suddenly tell him, hey, listen, now you have to pay me €1 for it, he might not take it, So going very early in with even maybe price which is slightly too high and work your way down, in my opinion, is much more useful than doing the opposite. But there are certainly other models, and I can send them into the group, but I don't have them in my head in the moment.
Thank you. Just as a reminder to our audience, we are going to keep time at the end for Q&A. So if you start to have questions, please drop them into the chat, hopefully at the bottom of your screen. I have a couple that have showed up already, but feel free to add them and we'll get to them soon. Could you talk next about people? Firstly, about your hiring plans as you expand, how you prioritize which roles, how you think about it, what works, what doesn't, and what you've learned. And maybe, Kalyo, you'd like to start?
Sure. So I think, what I learned, for example, now with Cecil, and I think this might also count for all scale-ups, is if you are a scale-up, your shares, your incentive models are extremely attractive. For a company like ours, which is IPO, they're even more attractive, right? Because shares are really liquid. But I think it also counts for scale-ups because, it's an attractive balance between strong financial reward and lower risk compared maybe to a startup, right? So I think, in Europe, we very often give not enough shares and we only give it to management. And that's something which I really learned from Cecil, which is very common, that you give it to every employee. It's a standard there, right? That this really makes a difference. And it makes a difference on many levels. Not only that they're more incentivized to work for you because they get a financial gain, but it really builds culture and a common understanding and values and so on, right? If you are part of this company. And I think this is something which we really don't do enough in Europe. And people complain about, but the ESOPs are not tax optimized. And so, but I mean, there's always ways, right? And it's very interesting that we don't do this earlier. And I didn't do it myself, right? My last company, I didn't do shares for the entire company. We talked about it, but we never executed it. So I think this is very important. And then for me, the second thing is, if you scale fast into new countries, you really, if you have the luxury to go for AAA people, for top of the notch people, you should always try to get AAA hires because your key hires, the country manager, whoever the head of sales per country and so on, they will have a huge impact on if this is going to be a success or not. And they also will hire, the team below them. And if you have AAA people, they're going to hire AAA people. And these people are never on the market. So you should not only rely on a recruiting agency, right? A lot of people just go to a recruiting agency. They don't know really the market's a new market. And of course you should do that and you learn the tricks from the recruiting agency. But on the end of the day, good people, no matter which market you are in, are not on the market. So it's more about identifying where they are and poaching them. And this poaching really has to be done by you. You really have to kind of reach out to them. I mean, you can work with your freelancers and your HR and so on to use your LinkedIn account, for example. That's how we do it. We use the LinkedIn account and then we send them messages. But it's really you who have to sit down for coffee. If, Corona times, you can't do that, but maybe set up a call and talk to these guys and convince them. So I think that's also very, very important. And just getting back to the point on agencies, I think agencies, job postings and agencies are not the solution. But I think, personally, at least, if you go into a new market, it's always good to start with an agency because you learn, you way around the market. You learn which job post works, and so on. And as soon as you have a good understanding, I rather work with my internal team in the long term, and maybe in the short to medium term, you have strong freelancers which are specialized, right? Recruiters which are specialized to help you out. But I guess these are my two biggest learnings in terms of recruiting.
And can I just follow up? You mentioned freelancers. I see a number of companies using freelancers as a first stage, consultants, people, because they haven't got ready to make the hires that they want to make permanently. Do you think that's a good way, or do you think it's worth holding out to hire full-time employees straight up?
I think it's a good way to start it because the problem with agencies is that you never know if there's a bigger client, right? So you don't have a lot of insight or transparency how much they're really working for you. If you're a freelancer, it's kind of, a person which comes into your team, hopefully exclusively working for you, which you can use very flexible, right? And you do have initially always quite a high effort to build your initial team. And then obviously there's a time where you have maybe less stress unless you're hyperscaling or blitzscaling, right? And I think, it's good to start this way because it's easy. There are very good specialized freelancers out there. I can highly recommend Done. Some advertising here for a company that we are using. They're doing an awesome job. And for us, it's a deal to start like that because I'm very flexible with my budget and I don't need to hire an entire HR team, which I don't initially need, right? Because we're still a family team, right? We want to, 10 people, 1 to 20 people. You don't need a fully fledged HR team for that, right? It comes maybe after you hit, your 20 people, then you really need to get the HR team in place. And the recruiters always have certain phases to go through, and hence I'm a fan of freelancers, but it's always the quality of the freelancer, right? So you need to know your way around and know the right people.
Yeah, no, I agree. Sophie.
Well, I think that's absolutely true. Everything you've both just said. There's a certain, when you're still a certain size, even though you're growing, and even though we were lucky enough that from the very beginning, actually our customers paid for our product. So we did have revenue coming in that we could grow through. And then we did a pre-seed round which supported it. But nonetheless, we were not in a place to hire the 6-7 developers that we needed in-house. And also, each sort of product development phase required different deep skills, let's say. So, we had, for example, a freelance developer from Vietnam who's like the crack in live streaming. He would have no interest to work for us full time, So, but we needed him for like 4 or 5 months for a certain phase of the product building. And now he's working for us like on a 1-day-a-week basis, right? So I think for the beginning, if you have access or you can find those experts that you need and they're willing to work for you freelance specifically for what you need, that's a great way to start. And then there's other areas, like, for example, customer success. Now that we've done such a big deployment phase, our next big focus, of course, is keeping the customer happy. So we've made a key hire someone to build a customer success team who's already built customer success teams in 2 other startups and knows how to do that and build the processes around that as well. So bit by bit, we're taking things in-house, but I think also working with freelancers is a great way to learn and understand what you really need. So I think a certain balance for a certain phase of a startup will always be there. For ways to find great people, I agree 100%. LinkedIn stalking is what I call it, and I've spent quite a bit, unfortunately, but quite a bit of my time doing that and just building my network so that if I need someone, I can sort of say, okay, instantly here are these 5 people that I can maybe reach out to, that I could maybe poach. And it's just, what else do you have? There's no fairs at the moment. There's nowhere. There's no meetups. Where else am I going to go? So that definitely has been a feasible strategy for us in the past months. And also to advertise, not for an agency, but for a different startup. There's a startup called Pitch Me. And they started out first by helping, I think, about 70,000, mostly IT staff in Europe, learning sort of soft skills. They put them through training programs and whatnot. And then at some point, they developed like an HR matchmaking online platform out of it. So you could say like the Tinder for finding staff, let's say. And it's based on values. So not only are you looking for hard skills, you have like your company values profile, and it gets matched with hires that have the same values and share the same values, want to work in that kind of culture environment kind of phase that you're in. And we've tested them once or twice and had some really pretty good hit rates at a really fair price compared to an HR agency. So that's also a great place to start for a startup.
That sounds very useful. The other thing I've seen work well for teams that don't have strong financial skills is getting part-time CFOs early on, to take CFOs or finance directors who can take on some of the burden of some of the plumbing of running the business and getting numbers ready for investors at various stages, those kinds of things. I think that can work well when founders that don't have those skills. Could we talk a little bit about managing and motivating people? Because I think, as is normal, it's not just finding them and paying them. It's about actually keeping them motivated to do what you want them to do. And talking a little about culture and how you set it. Maybe, Sophie, you're nodding. Maybe you'd like to start.
Well, I think, again, since we're just sort of in a flip phase from, hardcore self-deployment modes, which we're still in, but at the same time sort of, really now focusing on customer satisfaction and keeping them happy. It's an interesting thing to have both sort of happening in parallel, and it does open some cultural discussions, right? No question. Also in terms of focus and what's the sort of North Star, what are the 3 North Star metrics you're aiming for, let's say, right? And we have, in fact, decided for next year that that's going to be customer satisfaction. Of course, we want to grow, and of course, we will keep growing. But we have decided that that's going to be customer satisfaction and customer retention. And we're now looking into how to break that down into the individual, also KPIs, goals for the individual people in the team, so that everybody is aligned, let's say, under that North Star metric. I mean, this is not rocket science. I think a clear vision of where you're heading, clear goals that support that vision, and a very sort of clear idea of who you are in terms of values and whether the people that you hire share those values. All sounds relatively simple, I suppose. Of course, finding the people that actually match the values and that actually agree with that North Star metric and are motivated by working towards it, that's of course then, yeah, the tricky part.
Yeah. Maybe, Kalyo, you could talk about some of your experiences in doing that with larger teams that have been brought on board. Because I think describing it is quite simple. The doing is actually quite hard.
Yeah, absolutely.
Certainly without HR on site.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think I fully agree with everything Sophie also said. I think building a culture that you really live and building values that people really live is probably the hardest thing ever, right? It's an endless battle where you constantly have to adjust. Sometimes you have to be the diplomat, sometimes you need to act like a democrat, sometimes you have to be a dictator, right? But it's an endless battle, but I think it's one of the most important battles, and maybe some startups don't do this early enough. So I think if you take a step back, how do you motivate people? You have extrinsic and then intrinsic motivation. Extrinsic is the whole package, shares and the whole thing, right? And I think that's important. But an intrinsic is, as Sophie already explained, it's about really building a vision and then having a mission below the vision and then having values, right, which you really do live. And, it's very, very hard to do that because visions and missions sound often very empty. And people often, if you ask them what are the values of your company, they have that written down somewhere. It's very rare that they really can tell you all of the values. So I think, mission-driven companies are probably going to be the most successful one. For example, Settle is an extremely mission-driven company. Our mission is to financially empower the consumer. And we're extremely focused on the consumer, despite the fact that we are a B2B company, right? And hence we have probably in the whole buy now, pay later segment, we have the highest consumer ratings across the globe, no matter where you look, right? And this is really because this is not only a mission that we live, we have not only this relentless focus on customer, but you really see that the CEO, Charlie Youakim, which I think is one of the best CEOs I've ever worked for, really lives this mission. He lives the values, right? He acts by example, and you really see this cascades down into the entire company. And I think this is very rare. At least I saw examples of how culture should not be. Rocket maybe is one of Rocket was very successful, but culture building was not one of their, fortes, so to say. Yeah? So I think, to really build culture, it is, you really have to look into it. You have to understand how you not only define the right values, but how you make them actionable, right? So for example, if one of your value is ownership, right? I would say, okay, then maybe think about OKRs, because OKRs is a great tool and process and structure to give ownership to, the intern up to the CEO. Everybody's ownership, that also fosters transparency, by the way. A lot of people have transparency as a value, right? So how do you are transparent? What does transparency mean? Does it mean that I'm going to sit down in an all hands and we do questions, which are anonymous questions and everybody can ask whatever they want and I have to give feedback, or maybe if I don't want to give feedback, have to say, sorry, I'm not going to answer this question in front of the entire company, right? So it's really about thinking, what's your vision, what's your mission, how do you live this mission, what the values are below it, and how do you make them actionable, right? It's not enough just to write them down. You need to make them, to take this value and put it into a process and say, this process is representing this value. Right, and then people really, dig it and live it. But there's
no. Could you give me an example of one of those?
For example, I'm a big supporter of OKRs, right? Because OKRs does a lot of things which are really important to me. It fosters transparency, it fosters ownership, and it fosters also a lot of communication. Right, all values which we have, ownership, transparent communication, because OKRs essentially force you to do cross-departmental discussion because you're dependent on departments which are, on the same kind of, reporting level, right? You have to talk to IT to see, hey, my goals realistic, IT, are you actually providing me that? Yeah, we do. HR, can you actually get me the salespeople so I can, and so on. So that's one thing to do it, right? What else is there? 360-degree feedback sessions, right? Also another tool which is quite powerful, yeah. Where you get a lot of feedback, from people who work above you, below you, on the same level as you, right? So the different things, and I think again, less is more. Really looking at certain, for example, OKRs or 360 feedback sessions are extremely difficult to implement in any company in a way that really brings results, because there's always the initial phase. There's always a phase where you have opportunity costs, right? You need to implement it. People are not happy with it. Things are changing. There are always people who are against change, right? And then it takes 2, 3, 4 quarters until you really see the results and people live it, So you really need to think very carefully about what you implement and how this represents your values and your vision and your mission.
Okay. Thank you.
I agree. We also work with OKRs. I'm not going to lie, when the sudden growth hit, quite a lot of stuff went out the window. And now we're pulling all those strings together and trying to be really diligent. And now that we are building a team, and it's not just a small sort of founding team where we were also locked up together in one living room together. So, I mean, everybody knew what the other one was doing. Everyone could hear everybody's phone calls. But now as we're growing, exactly bringing us back to sort of those North Star metrics, those guiding principles, those values, is absolutely necessary. And actually, we've just started working with Asana. We already use it for customer onboardings. So our sales team is working with it quite a lot. And they've just released an OKR planning feature. So you can actually do top-down OKR planning, that you can, the independent teams that are on the tool, you can give them the access to their goals, and then they can follow their progress in the individual projects or whatever they're working on, even product development. And then it ties right back into the tool, and you can see exactly what the progress is, and everybody can see everybody else's progress as well. And it's quite
very nice.
Yeah, it's, I mean,
transparent.
I don't know. I think my team is no more tools and no more features and Sophie. But it's super helpful because everybody understands their piece of the puzzle and how it integrates into the rest and why it's important. And also, Caio, I fully agree with you. Actually, our first mission is to create and design the most joyful, intuitive, and seamless live commerce experiences. So we always have the end user in mind with every sort of decision that we make, right? And everything. That's our primary mission, right? And then, yes, the retailers, the e-com players, the brands that we work with, that's the B2B element to it, right? But I absolutely agree with you. It's the people we're empowering at the very end, let's say, that are actually using this on a daily basis, that we primarily have in mind when we design or think of the future. It also makes a lot of sense. And I think a lot of B2B SaaS companies find that difficult and maybe prioritize their B2B customers over the end user, which ultimately probably will not lead to success, because it's the end user that needs to accept the solution or use the solution or whatever, right? So they need to be happy with it, and they need to give the retailer or the brand the feedback that they love it, like your solution, like Sezzle, right? And then they will start loving it too.
Yeah, I fully agree. And you see this also with double-sided marketplace or platform solutions. There's a lot of confusion. Who's the king, right? A lot of people say, is it the supply side or demand side, right? And they never went to the point to really decide who's the king and who they're going to build for, right? So it's always a mix, and that's never smart, right? You need to make the decision, who's my king? And then you need to cater to this guy and have a laser focus on that.
Just taking some of the questions that have come in, I have a couple of specifics, one for each of you. Maybe starting with Caio. For BNPL purposes, do you prioritize integration through e-commerce platforms such as Shopify and Magento, or direct integration through APIs?
So it depends on which type of merchant you are talking to. So if you talk about SMB merchants, we go for e-commerce platforms because it's much more scalable. If you talk to big key accounts, you go into direct integrations because most of the big key accounts have in-house solutions. So it's changing now a little bit, but yeah, so depending if it's SMB or key accounts.
And Sophie, for you, what was your live shopping MVP? What were the features you started with?
live streaming, group chat, and the ability to buy the products. That's it. And today, we've literally just last week released from the outside view an additional feature, which is a co-host feature, so that two people can co-moderate a live shopping show together, being in two locations, which is something we prioritized in development given the current situation, so that our brands that were doing shows with two, for example, beauty experts doing tutorials together in one place, that they could keep doing that even if they were in two places. So, and we've kept it that simple until now. Of course, in the back end, we've optimized God knows how many things about the chat features, that there's like a profanity filter that you can block users, that, you know, there's all this stuff happening in the back end. But in the front, it's really that simple. And only for next year, as to the topic we had before with innovation, are we really looking into really exciting stuff like gamifying the experience and doing all these other things, which will be super fun. But, you know, the fundamentals, and also to prove that this works, that was what we had to focus on first. And then all the other things will add to the engagement and the fun of the experience in the future.
Okay, thank you. A couple of different questions. We've talked earlier about scaling sort of generically, but perhaps being specific in a different way. When do you decide to go international or to go into market A versus market B when you're leaving your home market? And is that a sequential process? I mean, do you start international and just plug in the gaps randomly? Do you, build at home and then start in a new market as your first adventure? Maybe you could both talk a little bit about that. Maybe Kalya, you'd like to start.
Yeah, I think, it's situational, right? There's no kind of answer which applies to all situations. But I think, what I would always say, if you have a proven concept in your market and you scale it in your market, then and you have markets surrounding you which are very similar from the market setup and the social demographics and so on, right, and needs, then it's probably a better idea to internationalize than to kind of vertically or horizontally expand, right, by building new innovative features or new services and so on, right? Because in my opinion, and I think this is, maybe a lot of people disagree with that approach, but in my opinion, it's easier to get into a new market with a proven model than to out-innovate an existing market with something new, right? So if you're at the point where you say, listen, this works now, and we kind of tweaked it, and we now essentially have to vertical integrate in our home market, then it's time to move into the next market. But you obviously have to afford that, right? It costs money, right? So my take is, as soon as you prove of concept, and you can convince your investors to put a lot of money into you because they trust you, you should expand rather sooner than later, right? Because most businesses are dominated by size, right? And there's always going to be one dominant player. I mean, there are some markets which are super fragmented, right? This is not the situation, but these are also not the most attractive markets. Those markets which are really attractive, there's always going to be one big guy, right? And I think very often in Europe, we don't think big enough. And we think about, how to exit it in 4 years or something like that. But if you look at all the American big players, they really understood it. The blitz scaling very, very early on is extremely important, right? And they'll go for different motions, but the internationalization approach is one very systematic approach. And they do it for everything that is proven in the home market. There's always the same steps, right? The American companies always go into the Anglo-Saxon room, and then they go into the Western European room, and then kind of Asia and so on, right? So they always go for the same motions. And I think, startups need to think maybe a little earlier about expansion than doing this too late. So you can't be too early. It's a question, can you afford it? Well, you can be too early. So that's the last sentence is bad. You can be too early, but you certainly more often are too late, right?
Yeah.
I hope this answers the question. It was maybe a little flaky.
I think so.
Yeah.
But I think it's hard unless you're really specific, because a lot of it is quite generic, and often individual business models make it more specific. But I totally agree with you.
Yeah. So I think here again, what helps is if you want to be very specific, then have a plan from the outset. I need to hit PMF. PMF are those KPIs, those metrics. Those are PMF. Then I need to scale. I need to get to the point where I scale, 10x, right? Or I have an indication that I can do that. If I hit the indication, then it's time to expand, internationalize, right? So you can have a plan from the outset, which is very clearly just executing the points, right? And ideally you have investors which understand that and say, okay, let's do it. It's easier for second-time founders, at least in Europe, because they did it already, so they're going to do it again. But yeah, so you certainly can work with very specific goals, which are very metric-driven, to make this clearer.
Yeah. Yeah, and from my side, I think if you would have asked me a year ago, I probably would have shared a relatively classic idea on this, that maybe you need to prove in certain sort of home markets first that it works, and only then, because you need the setup, because you need to put a muscle behind it, does it make sense to expand. And I think COVID also comes into play here, at least for what we do. So we're retail tech, B2B SaaS, a digital product. A year ago, meeting companies, big companies like the ones we work with, usually those companies would have required at least one of us to actually be there and pitch to them in person, right? It's a CIO or a CDO or the innovation team or the CMO. Somebody would have been like, hey, if we want to start doing live shopping, it's quite an innovative thing. I want one of the Lisa team to be here and like to pitch this to me in person. So, we'd be flying around, and at the time only Europe, to pitch like for 1 hour to a potential customer. And I mean, the cost that incurred and also the time it took was like insane. But of course you do it because you need to get your foot in the door, right? And then COVID hit, and there was suddenly a very high demand for what we do. And there was simply no other way than to meet, online to explain and demo the product once or twice, and then for there to be a decision, do they want to do live shopping, yes or no? And for us to start the onboarding process and get on with it. And since March, every single customer we've onboarded has been 100% digital. And at this point in time, it doesn't matter whether it's the US or, we're looking into Korea right now. It just doesn't matter. The only difference, and that's the one thing we're looking into for next year, is that we might start building small customer support teams on the ground of those countries which we've already expanded into, simply for time zone purposes. So if an American brand is live, it's like 2 o'clock at night here. And as much as I'm sure our team loves us, I'm sure at some point they're going to kill us if we keep asking them to support the customers at 2 at night. Of course, it's us founders that then mostly do that. So for sure, there will be the requirement to build 1 or 2, let's say, support people in the geographies that our customers are in for pure time zone reasons. But other than that, the customer acquisition, the customer onboarding, all of that, the deployment of the product, all works digitally. So I think that has had a massive impact on the considerations of how to internationalize. And they are very different than they were a year ago, for us at least.
Yeah, I fully agree with everything Sophie said. We experienced similar situation now.
Me too. That's what I see too. I'm conscious of time and that we probably need to bring this to a close. I think that my last question for you is, when do you think we're going to go back to being required to show up in person? Mm-hmm. Because it's been a great advantage. I think, Sophie, you've talked about it for your business, but I see it across lots of businesses that sales has become much easier in some respects when you don't have to travel. It's a bit more complicated on an interpersonal level. But I already see people starting to plan when they can go back to visiting people. And I just wondered how you both were thinking about that.
I guess it's, I don't think it's going to go back to what it used to be before Corona, right? I mean, if you think about it, I used to travel 3 times a week or something. I used to travel sometimes 10 hours a day for a 2-hour meeting, 1-hour meeting where I said maybe 5 sentences, right? It wasn't actually inside, it was so bizarre, right? And I charged for that as well, right? So, people paid me for that, totally. Sitting in a taxi and in a plane and so on. So I don't think it's going to go back to that, but I think, it needs to be the right balance, right? So I also see a lot of people. There's some people which thrive on remote work. Other people have a real problem with it, right? They're very isolated, They consider their teammates often their family, right? It's very important for them to have the social interactions. So I think what's going to happen is, at least that's what we are planning, is there's going to be a very flexible model, right? For example, we are in the moment planning to set up teams that have access to the WeWorks of this world, right? Where they can come, but they don't have to come, right? We have certain rooms which are dedicated to to us for more sensitive teams like finance and HR and so on, right? We rent out bigger rooms if we do an all hands, and there are certain days where everybody meets for cultural building situation and so on and so forth, right? And I think, certain deals, certain meetings have to be done face to face, right? If you have a really important deal or you get a very important investor, you might want to meet him and shake his hand, right? But I do expect that this is going to be very different, even if Corona is completely gone. And at least we are planning according to that. In the moment, the advantages certainly outweigh the disadvantages. And a year ago, I was actually imposed to that. So I had loads of discussions in the last years, really, about going more remote, and I was always against it, and so on. And I just realized I was completely wrong, right? It's just, as long as you keep the same time zone. I mean, we have people employed from Ukraine to South Africa, right? As long as it's in the same time zone, it works, and it just, increases the recruitment pool so massively, right? And yeah, overall, I think there's a lot of advantages, but we need to get the right balances, and we really need to kind of do some A/B testing and do some cycles until it works to the point that we really want to have it.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, and I don't, to be honest, I think for the type of product that we have, and because it can be started with such light integration for the brands, it's easy for them to, even if they're paying for it, but just to start testing it. I think the mindset has shifted, do I have to really have that startup come pitch to me in person if this is sort of what the pricing is and how easy it is to set up, like expanding with a customer and we start integrating, for some we're starting to integrate in-app, after a successful pilot period and whatnot. There, I think it can make sense then after, a successful trial together or whatever, to sit down and actually meet the people on the other end of the screen. But I hope it doesn't become a sort of hard demand again.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, thank you both. It's been really interesting. I hope our audience found it useful, but it's been very generous of you to share your insights with everybody. So thank you.
Thank you. Great questions. Thank you.
Yeah,
Bye-bye.
I can add to that, Sophie. Those were lovely questions, Johanna. Thank you so much for preparing that. It really brought out some good conversations, good sharings. Looking at both, or like all three of you. I wish I could share this with even more people. I'm glad that this will be somewhere on YouTube so that people can rewatch this and learn, because really, really great takeaways. Also, just on, I'm thinking about the hard skills and the soft skills that you mentioned in like your experience. So thank you very much for your time. So I don't know if you'll be joining us for the networking session, but for everyone else who is, you will probably be in the portal right now. And so above me on this side, I think, is a second tab, networking area. And so when you go in there, you will register yourself and you will go into this beautiful tech room. And there we will start the networking. Just again, to the three of you, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for your sharing. I look forward to speaking to all of you again, if that is in person or not. I always enjoy conversation with you.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Serena.
Okay. Thank you. Ciao. And so for anyone who's still in here, I will be joining the networking session now. Julia and Sylvia is already there. We are looking forward to meeting you. And as we said, a lot of the startups that pitched today, they are joining us too. So if you've got questions for them, if you want to hear about, from CB4 and Anti-Knots about the piloting, looking forward to meeting you in there. As I said, just above me, a button, networking area. Click on that. You'll register yourself, a little avatar. It's actually you, because you can take a photo. So see you in there.